And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward, always getting closer, I'm marching till it's over. And just like a soldier, I keep on moving forward.
Hello and welcome back to MangaMuse guys. This is the 5th part of What If Naruto Enters Bluelock. Make sure to like, share, subscribe and also press the bell icon so that you never miss a great update. Also make sure to check out the wonderful author SpellRGN on FANFICTIONnet. Well, let's continue with the story now.
The Japan national team bus rolled through the streets of St. Petersburg, its dark blue frame reflecting the morning sun. Inside, the atmosphere was a mix of calm focus and quiet intensity. Players sat with headphones in, eyes closed, mentally preparing. Others stared out the window, watching as the massive Zenith Arena loomed closer. Sae sat near the back, his arms crossed, resting his eyes. Naruto sat beside him, completely still. Just waiting. He had already made up his mind. They weren't losing today. The bus finally slowed, turning into the private player entrance of the stadium. The moment it stopped, a wave of noise hit them. Even inside the vehicle, they could hear the cheers of Japanese fans waiting outside. As soon as Naruto stepped off the bus, the atmosphere changed. The sheer scale of the stadium was overwhelming, home to 68,000 fans, and today, the battlefield that would determine Japan's fate. A mixture of blue and red filled the stands, Japanese fans waving flags, while Costa Rican supporters roared with pride. Naruto walked toward the entrance, his navy blue tracksuit with Japan number 7, clinging to his body. He passed the media section, cameras instantly locked onto him. Flashes. Microphones. Reporters whispering. They knew who the world was watching today. Sae stepped beside him, stretching his arms over his head. It's loud. Naruto smirked, rolling his shoulders. Good. They should be loud when they watch a masterpiece. Sae sighed, shaking his head. You and your ego. Naruto chuckled. You love it. The air inside the tunnel was thick. Both teams stood side by side, waiting for the signal to walk onto the pitch. Japan, dressed in their iconic blue kits with white shorts, stood tall and focused. Costa Rica, in their red home shirt, looked calm, confident. Their captain, a tall, rugged defender, stood at the front, glancing at Naruto with a measured look. Naruto smirked. You ready? The captain didn't respond, but his teammates whispered among themselves, staring at Naruto cautiously. They had seen the Spain match. They knew what he could do. Naruto felt a tap on his shoulder. Sae muttered, They're watching you. Naruto grinned, cracking his neck. Let them. The Costa Rican goalkeeper, a seasoned veteran, finally spoke, his Japanese thick but understandable. One game doesn't make you a legend, kid. Naruto's grin widened. Good thing this is just the beginning, then. John Parker, English broadcaster, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the final match of Group E, Japan vs Costa Rica. A match that will decide Japan's fate in the World Cup. Goro Takemura, Japanese analyst, and what a moment this is. After their historic win against Spain, Japan comes into this match knowing that a victory is their only way forward. John Parker, but standing in their way is a disciplined Costa Rican side that will not make it easy for them. Japan will have to work for every inch of space today. Goro Takemura, and, of course, all eyes will be on one player, Naruto Uzumaki. The 16-year-old who stunned the world against Spain with his 4-goal performance. Can he do it again? John Parker, or will Costa Rica shut him down and send Japan home? We're about to find out. The referee called for the teams to step forward. Naruto took one last breath. Then, with a grin, he walked onto the pitch. Inside the Uzumaki household. Kushina sat on the couch, arms crossed, eyes glued to the massive flat-screen TV. Minato sat beside her, a calm smile on his face, but even he couldn't hide the slight tension in his posture. The moment the broadcast switched to the stadium, showing Naruto standing in the tunnel, stretching his arms behind his head with that confident smirk, Kushina exhaled heavily. That little BRT. He's always acting like he owns the world. Minato chuckled, sipping his tea. Well, he kind of does right now. Kushina scoffed, shaking her head, but there was pride hidden beneath her frustration. The camera zoomed in on Naruto's number 7 Japan jersey, his eyes burning with excitement as he glanced at the Costa Rican players. Kushina tensed. Minato smiled softly. Let's see what our son can do. Inside a classroom, nearly every student sat at their desks, their eyes locked onto the huge projector screen mounted on the wall. The Japan vs Costa Rica match was being shown live. At the back of the room, 2 familiar figures watched closely. DMN, he really made it this far, huh? Ryo Mikage sat with his arms folded, his usually playful demeanor a little more serious than usual as he watched the broadcast. Next to him, Nagi Saishiro, his white hair slightly messy, yawned lazily, resting his head on his arms. He's kinda cool, I guess. Ryo gave him a side glance. Kinda? Dude, he's playing in the World Cup. At 16. Nagi shrugged. Yeah, but it still looks like too much work. Ryo sighed. I swear, you're impossible. A few seats ahead, another pair of eyes locked onto the screen. Mikasa Ackerman sat with her hands clasped under her chin, her sharp gray eyes following Naruto's every movement as he walked onto the pitch. When the camera zoomed in on his smirk, she could almost hear his voice in her head. Who do you think I am? Of course we're gonna win. Mikasa exhaled through her nose. You better win, Uzumaki. Inside a darkened room, a massive wall of screens flickered, each displaying different angles of the Japan vs Costa Rica match. The glow of the monitors reflected off a pair of glasses, a thin smirk curling at the lips of the man watching. Jinpachi Ego. His fingers steepled beneath his chin as he observed the Japanese players stepping onto the field. So he's finally back on the center stage. The camera cut to Naruto Uzumaki, cracking his neck, his body loose, his eye practically glowing under the stadium lights. Ego adjusted his glasses, his smirk widening. Show me what you've got, egoist. Elsewhere, far from the school classrooms, far from the public eye, one person watched the match with intense focus. The room was small, the only light coming from the television screen. A young man sat on the edge of his bed, elbows resting on his knees, his sharp blue eyes locked onto Naruto Uzumaki. He had dark, messy hair, an athletic frame, and a quiet aura of determination. Isagi Yoichi. He had watched the entire Japan vs Spain match. And now, he was watching again. But this wasn't just a fan watching in admiration. This was a player analyzing a future opponent. Uzumaki Naruto, he muttered under his breath, leaning forward slightly. The roar of 68,000 fans filled the stadium, a mix of Japanese and Costa Rican supporters creating a thunderous atmosphere. On the pitch, the players took their positions. Japan, dressed in their blue kits, stood ready. Costa Rica, in deep red, prepared to absorb the pressure. The referee signaled, and the moment had arrived. Kick off. John Parker, and we're underway here in St. Petersburg. Japan vs Costa Rica, the final match of Group E, and Japan's World Cup hopes are on the line. Goro Takemura, that's right, John. Japan must win today if they want any chance of progressing. A draw or a loss, and they're heading home. No room for error. From the opening whistle, Japan took immediate control of possession. SAE, stationed deep in midfield, dictated the tempo with effortless precision. Short passes. Quick movement. Naruto, positioned as a false 9, drifted between Costa Rica's center-backs, looking for openings. Costa Rica, as expected, sat back in a low defensive block, 5 at the back, 4 in midfield, their lone striker barely pressing. Naruto clicked his tongue, already sensing how annoying this would be. Alright, let's break this DMN wall. In the third minute, a sharp exchange between SAE and Naruto as he received the ball just outside the penalty area. With a quick touch, Naruto turned and fired a shot. Blocked. Costa Rica's defenders swarmed immediately, crowding him out before he could get a clean strike. Naruto exhaled, narrowing his eyes. So that's how they wanted to play? Fine. For the first time, Costa Rica broke forward. A misplaced pass from Japan's right back led to a quick turnover, and suddenly, Costa Rica's midfield surged forward. Naruto and SAE turned their heads, tracking the play. John Parker, Costa Rica on the counterattack. This is where they're dangerous. Their winger, lightning fast, raced down the left, cutting inside past Japan's left back. The Costa Rican striker timed his run perfectly, darting into the box as the cross came flying in. A header, the ball flew toward goal as the keeper punched it away. Japan's goalkeeper dived, fist smashing the ball clear. The stadium gasped, then erupted in cheers. Goro Takemura, a huge save. That could have been an early disaster for Japan. Naruto let out a sharp breath, jogging back into position. Costa Rica had shown their game plan. Sit deep. Defend. Counter hard. It was going to be a long battle. Japan reset, building from the back. SAE received the ball near midfield, eyes scanning ahead. Naruto dropped deep, his emperor's eye flickering as he analyzed the movement of Costa Rica's defensive line. He saw the space before it opened. SAE barely glanced at him before launching a long-driven pass over the top. The ball whipped through the air as Naruto exploded forward. A burst of speed. One perfect touch on the run. The Costa Rican defender closed in. Naruto slowed down, then suddenly cut inside. John Parker, Uzumaki. Inside the box. He pulled his leg back, ready to shoot. A last-second slide tackle knocked the ball away. The crowd groaned, but Naruto was already back on his feet. SAE jogged up, giving him a look. Close. Naruto grinned. We're getting there. Costa Rica's defenders were locked in, but Naruto felt them starting to shift. He could see the gaps forming. And so could SAE. As Japan passed the ball around the edge of the penalty box, Naruto suddenly dropped deep again. A midfielder followed him, but that was a mistake. Because that meant SAE was free. Naruto, without looking, backheeled the ball into space. SAE, already anticipating it, sprinted forward, and let it rip. A power shot from outside of the box. The Costa Rican keeper dived at full stretch with a fingertip save. As the ball barely missed the post, rolling out for a corner. The Japanese fans erupted, sensing the first real moment of danger. John Parker, Japan is knocking on the door now. They're getting closer and closer. Naruto walked back into position, his breathing steady. He could feel it. The goal was coming. Japan had finally broken through Costa Rica's defensive wall, forcing a corner kick after a shot from SAE. Now, the entire Costa Rican defense was on edge. Naruto jogged into the penalty area, his emperor's eye scanning the setup. Costa Rica had all 11 players inside the box, ready to defend with everything they had. But that didn't matter. Because Naruto could see it. The exact space. The exact second. The moment that would win them this duel. SAE walked up to take the corner, his expression unreadable. From the commentary booth, the analysts felt the anticipation rise. John Parker, corner kick for Japan. Itoshir SAE steps up to take it. Could this be the moment? Goro Takemura, it's their first set-piece opportunity of the match. Costa Rica is known for their strong defensive structure, but Japan has the height advantage here. SAE placed the ball near the corner flag, rolling his shoulders before glancing at the penalty area. His teal eyes flicked toward Naruto for just a second. That was all Naruto needed. SAE already knew where Naruto wanted it. He took a step back, exhaling slowly. Then he struck it. A perfect in-swinging cross, curling with laser precision toward the near post. Naruto was already moving. As the ball curled in, Costa Rica's defenders scrambled to react. Naruto timed his run perfectly, slipping between two center-backs. He exploded upward, his leap higher than anyone else's. The ball met his forehead with a loud crack. A power header straight into the back of the net. Goal! Japan 1-0 Costa Rica. The stadium erupted. The Japanese fans exploded into cheers, while Costa Rica's defenders stood frozen, stunned by what had just happened. Naruto landed smoothly, sliding onto his knees near the corner flag, his right hand casually pointing toward SAE. A simple, effortless gesture. Thanks for the cross. SAE, walking back toward midfield, smirked slightly, giving a small nod before turning away. John Parker, and there it is. Japan takes the lead. Naruto Uzumaki, once again, delivers. Goro Takemura, what a perfect header. The technique, the timing, this kid is unbelievable. John Parker, and let's give credit to Itoshire SAE as well, what a world-class delivery on that corner. Goro Takemura, this is why these two are different. They create something out of nothing. As Japan celebrated, the live score updates from the other match in Group E flashed across the screen. Spain 2-1 Germany. Luna had already scored twice. And if Spain won while Japan won, Japan would be eliminated on goal difference. Inori, seated in the press box, typed furiously on her laptop. Japan takes the lead, but the real battle isn't just here. With Spain leading Germany, Japan's World Cup fate is still hanging by a thread. She exhaled, her pink hair falling into her face as she stared at the screen. Japan had controlled the match after taking the lead through Naruto's powerful header, but Costa Rica refused to roll over. For the last 10 minutes, they had pressed forward aggressively, forcing Japan's defense to hold firm. Naruto watched it all unfold, his body loose, his breathing steady. His job was done for now. SAE stood slightly behind him in midfield, watching with the same detached expression. Neither of them looked worried. Because if Japan lost this lead, it wouldn't be on them. Costa Rica launched one final attack, their winger cutting inside and firing a dangerous shot toward goal. Japan's keeper punched it away, and before the ball could be recycled, the referee blew the whistle. Half-time. Japan walked off the pitch leading 1-0. As he jogged toward the tunnel, he noticed the coaching staff whispering intensely, their eyes flicking between a tablet screen and the scoreboard. His gut told him bad news was coming. The players entered the dressing room, many of them still catching their breath, wiping sweat from their brows. Some were smiling, others giving each other silent nods of encouragement. But Naruto and SAE just sat down, grabbed water bottles, and waited. And then the head coach finally spoke. His voice was grim. Spain is leading Germany 2-1. The room froze, some players blinked in confusion, while others immediately understood. If Spain wins and Japan wins, Japan is out on goal difference. Naruto took a slow sip of water. SAE exhaled through his nose, leaning back against the bench. One of the senior defenders frowned. So what do we do? The assistant coach sighed heavily. If Germany doesn't equalize, we need to score more. A 1-0 win isn't enough. Murmurs filled the room. Some players nodded determinedly, while others exchanged nervous glances. Naruto remained silent. His hands rested on his knees, his emperor's eye dull, almost lifeless. Because at this point, it wasn't up to him anymore. As the conversation swirled around him, Naruto stared blankly at the floor. His heart rate wasn't rising. He wasn't angry. He wasn't desperate. He felt nothing. Because the truth was simple. He had done his job. He scored. He gave Japan the lead. If Germany couldn't handle Spain, if Japan couldn't score more, then that was on them. Not him. SAE, sitting beside him, had the exact same posture. Arms folded, gaze impassive, jaw relaxed. They were both thinking the same thing. They had already proven themselves. The head coach rubbed his face, clearly stressed. We can't afford to sit back. We have to push forward. One of the assistants nodded. Then we need Uzumaki and Itoshire even more in the second half. We play through them. Naruto barely reacted. He already knew that. SAE exhaled sharply. We just keep playing. That's all we can do. The coach hesitated, then finally gave the order. All right. We attack. No holding back. Players nodded, fists clenched in determination. Naruto and SAE just existed in the moment. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, then it wasn't their fault anyway. As halftime neared its end, the commentators began setting the stage for the second half. John Parker, Japan leads, but it might not be enough. If Spain holds on against Germany, Japan will still be eliminated. Goro Takemura, this is the brutal reality of the World Cup. Winning isn't always enough. Goal difference matters. John Parker, so the second half will be crucial. Does Japan keep attacking? Or do they hope Germany rescues them? Inori sat in the press section, her fingers flying across her keyboard. Japan is in an impossible situation. They're winning, but it's not in their hands anymore. The fate of their World Cup run depends on two things: scoring more goals, or praying that Germany saves them. She glanced at the broadcast, the camera zooming in on Naruto sitting on the bench, his expression unreadable. Looks like he's already accepted whatever happened next. The roar of the crowd filled the stadium as Japan stepped back onto the pitch. Spain was winning 2-1 against Germany, meaning Japan's World Cup hopes were still hanging by a thread. Naruto walked onto the field slowly, his body loose, his emperor's eye flickering as he scanned the opposition. But this time he wasn't the main focus. As he took his position, SAE stepped forward. For the first time in this tournament, Itoshire SAE was about to take over. As Japan restarted play, the ball immediately found its way to SAE. He turned on a dime, effortlessly skipping past the first Costa Rican midfielder. Naruto, positioned slightly behind him, watched without moving. He could see it already. SAE's rhythm was different now. His touches were sharper, his passes had an extra kick to them. A sudden burst forward. SAE, who had spent most of the game controlling the midfield, surged past the second defensive line. Naruto smirked. About time. Costa Rica's defenders rushed in, expecting a pass, but SAE wasn't passing. SAE cut inside, smoothly gliding past a defender with a quick double touch before entering the box. A center-back lunged in too slow. SAE flicked the ball past him, positioning himself for the shot. John Parker, Itachi SAE. Into the box. This could be it. The Costa Rican goalkeeper rushed out, closing the angle. But SAE didn't care. With a perfectly timed strike, he curled the ball low and fast into the bottom right corner. Goal! Japan 2-0 Costa Rica. SAE barely reacted. No celebration. No smile. Just a calm jog back to midfield, his eyes sharp and unforgiving. Naruto walked past him, giving him a smirk. Took you long enough. SAE sighed. Shut up. Goro Takemura, there it is. Itoshire SAE shows why he's Japan's best midfielder. That was world-class composure in front of goal. John Parker, and look at his reaction, he doesn't even care. That's how high his standards are. Goro Takemura, with SAE stepping up and Naruto still lurking, Japan is coming alive in this second half. In a separate part of the stadium, a massive screen showed the live feed of Spain's game. As Japan's fans celebrated, a sudden gasp came from a small section. Spain 3-1 Germany. Luna had just scored again. Japan's reality was starting to settle in. For the next 15 minutes, Costa Rica looked broken. SAE dictated the midfield with ruthless precision, and Naruto bided his time, waiting for the right moment. And then it came. Naruto saw the space first. SAE's pass was already coming before he even called for it. A sharp trivela through ball, cutting through the entire Costa Rican defense. Naruto, running at full speed, took one perfect touch to control it. One-on-one with the keeper. He didn't hesitate. A quick flick of the ankle, a chipped shot over the diving goalkeeper. Goal. Japan 3-0 Costa Rica. Naruto turned away instantly, walking back toward midfield. No screaming. No excessive celebration. Just a slow, confident nod toward SAE. SAE, still near midfield, gave a small wave, as if saying, "You're welcome." Naruto smirked. "Appreciate it." The crowd exploded in celebration. Japan had done all they could. But in the stands, Inori's face remained tense. Her phone screen showed the updated score from the other match. Spain 4-1 Germany. Luna scored all 4 goals, while Kaiser had scored Germany's only goal. Japan had won their battle. But they had lost the war. The referee brought the whistle to his lips. The stadium roared as the match officially came to an end. Japan had won 3-0. But there was no celebration. Because, just as the final whistle blew, the scoreboard flashed the result from the other match. Spain 4-1 Germany. Silence fell over the Japanese squad. Naruto stood near the center circle, hands on his hips, staring up at the screen. It was official. Despite their victory, despite their best efforts, Japan was out of the World Cup. The reaction was mixed. Some players collapsed onto the field, heads in their hands. Others just stood there, staring blankly at nothing. A few of the older veterans sighed heavily, their World Cup dreams shattered in an instant. Naruto took a slow breath, then exhaled. There was no anger. No shock. Just acceptance. This was out of his control. He had done everything he could. SAE, standing beside him, let out a deep sigh, running a hand through his hair. TCH, what a joke. Naruto smirked slightly. Yeah, but at least we went out winning. SAE snorted. Humph. I guess. The coaches walked onto the field, their expressions mixed. The head coach was clearly frustrated, but even he knew there was nothing more to say. Slowly, one by one, the older players of Japan stood up and walked towards the fans. Even in defeat, there was still tradition to uphold. The team gathered at the edge of the pitch, facing the thousands of Japanese fans who had supported them. Together, they bowed. A deep, respectful bow. The Japanese supporters, in response, stood on their feet, applauding with all their strength. They had come here expecting nothing. But they had left proud. Naruto and SAE joined the others in the bow, standing next to each other. John Parker, and so, just like that, Japan's incredible World Cup journey comes to an end. Goro Takemura, it's heartbreaking, John. They did everything right today. But football can be cruel. Sometimes. Winning isn't enough. Kushina sat on the couch, her hands clasped together, her lips pressed tightly. Minato, beside her, let out a slow breath, before reaching over to gently squeeze her hand. He did well, Minato said softly. Kushina sighed, rubbing her temples. I know. I just wanted more for him. Minato smiled. This isn't the end. It's just the start of something bigger. She nodded slowly, though the disappointment in her eyes remained. The room was silent. Nagi, still slouched in his chair, finally stretched, letting out a quiet yawn. Well. That sucks, he muttered. Ryo, sitting beside him, clenched his fist. They were so close. From a few seats away, Mikasa leaned back, arms crossed, her gray eyes focused on the screen. She watched as the broadcast showed Naruto walking off the field, his face calm but unreadable. She could tell. Even if he didn't show it, this loss stung. He'll be back, Mikasa muttered under her breath. Inside an empty training field, a lone figure sprinted across the pitch, the sharp sound of cleats grinding against the turf echoing through the night air. Dribbling. Shooting. Dribbling. More shooting. Over and over again. His turquoise eyes burned with silent rage. Itoshi Rin. The younger brother of SAE had watched the World Cup unfold. And he hated it. He hated seeing his brother play as a midfielder. He hated seeing Uzumaki Naruto act like he was the best striker in Japan. He hated not being there. With every kick of the ball, with every sprint, with every second he spent on the field, his hatred grew. Until finally, he stopped, his breath ragged, sweat dripping from his brow. And in the quiet darkness of the training ground, he muttered under his breath, "Next time I'll be the one on that stage." The press room was packed. Journalists, analysts, and reporters from around the world had gathered, eager to hear from the teenage prodigy who had stunned the football world over the past few weeks. Naruto, dressed in his Japan training jacket, sat at the podium, calm, composed, and completely in control. The air was thick with anticipation. Despite Japan's elimination from the World Cup, Naruto had become one of the tournament's biggest talking points. And everyone wanted to know what comes next. The first few questions were routine. "Naruto, you and SAE were two of the standout players in this Japan squad. Despite your efforts, Japan is out. How are you feeling right now?" Naruto leaned back slightly, tapping his fingers against the table. "It is what it is." A few reporters chuckled at the blunt response. Naruto continued, his eyes sharp under the bright media lights. "We won our game. We did what we were supposed to do. But sometimes, football isn't fair. It's a team sport. No matter how much effort we put in, it wasn't in our hands anymore. That's just how it is." Then came the question everyone was waiting for. "Naruto, what's next for you? Will you be returning to Italy to rejoin Ubers immediately?" Naruto exhaled through his nose, tilting his head slightly. Then, a smirk formed on his lips. "Nope." The room stirred slightly. Naruto continued, leaning forward. "I'm taking a break. Gonna spend some time with my girlfriend first." And then he turned his head slightly, locking eyes with Inori as he winked. The entire room burst into quiet murmurs and chuckles as the cameras quickly flashed toward Inori, who stiffened slightly, clearly not expecting that. She barely reacted, simply raising an eyebrow, but the faintest shade of pink dusted her cheeks. Naruto, as if completely unaware of the chaos he just caused, leaned back in his seat, looking completely relaxed. Another journalist quickly followed up. "When you do return, are you considering staying with the Ubers full-time after your loan, or is a return to Real in your future?" Naruto grinned, but this time, he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he rested his chin on his hand, tapping the mic with his finger. "No comment." The reporters immediately began whispering among themselves. It was a vague answer, but a calculated one. The uncertainty surrounding his future would only make things more exciting. For now, Naruto was heading back to Japan. That was all they needed to know. Just as the interview was about to wrap up, a final question came. "Naruto, with Japan eliminated, France, Germany, and Spain are all moving on to the knockout stages. That means both Julian Loki and Michael Kaiser are still in the tournament." The journalist adjusted his glasses, voice steady. "Do you feel like they are ahead of you right now?" The room went silent. Naruto blinked. Then he laughed. A full, genuine laugh. When he finally calmed down, his expression became dead serious. "No. They're not ahead of me." The reporter raised an eyebrow. "But their teams are still in the tournament." Naruto leaned forward slightly, eyes sharp, voice firm. "That's not because of them. It's because of their countries." The room fell completely silent. Naruto's emperor's eye gleamed. "This is football. You need a team. Right now, France, Germany, and Spain are stronger than Japan. That's all. Loki and Kaiser aren't ahead of me. They just play for better teams." His confidence radiated across the room. Then he finished with one final statement. "I consider myself one of the best strikers in the world. And one day, I'll be the best ever." The entire room buzzed with energy as Naruto stood up, stepping away from the podium without another word. As soon as Naruto stepped out of the press conference hall, he stretched his arms above his head, rolling his shoulders lazily. A few steps later, he saw Inori waiting for him. She had her arms crossed, an unreadable expression on her face. "Really?" she asked flatly. Naruto smirked. "What?" Inori sighed, shaking her head. "You just had to wink at me in front of the entire world, huh?" Naruto chuckled. "What? Thought you'd like the attention." Inori gave him a side-eye glance but didn't argue. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. "So Japan is out. What now?" Naruto exhaled, looking up at the night sky. "First, I'm going home," she hummed. "And after that?" Naruto smiled. "Guess we'll see." As Naruto stood with Inori outside the Zenith Arena, the cold night air brushing gently against them. The stadium behind them still buzzed quietly with activity as media and fans slowly dispersed, leaving only the quiet hum of distant voices. Naruto took a deep breath, hands resting casually in his pockets. He glanced down at Inori, a small smile on his lips. "So wanna come to Japan with me?" She tilted her head slightly, considering it. Then, with a soft smile, she nodded. "Yeah. It's about time I saw my mom anyway." Naruto's smile widened. "Great. Maybe you can meet my family, too." Inori raised an eyebrow, her lips quirking into a teasing smirk. "Already? That's pretty fast, isn't it?" Naruto laughed, shrugging. "Why waste time?" She shook her head slightly, a soft chuckle escaping her lips. "Fine. Let's do it." For a moment, they stood quietly, enjoying the comfortable silence. Suddenly, Naruto's phone buzzed loudly in his pocket, interrupting their conversation. He frowned slightly, pulling it out. The screen showed an unfamiliar number. Inori glanced at him curiously. "Who's that?" Naruto shook his head, unsure. "Don't know." He swiped the screen, holding the phone up to his ear. "Hello?" The voice that answered was calm, measured, and filled with unmistakable authority. "Hello. Is this Uzumaki Naruto?" Naruto blinked, slightly cautious. "Yeah. Who's this?" A pause. Then, the voice spoke again, carrying an intensity that immediately grabbed Naruto's attention. "My name is Jinpachi Ego. And I'd like to speak with you about the Bluelock project." Naruto's eyes widened slightly, his entire posture changing as he felt an unexpected surge of curiosity. Inori looked up at him, sensing something had shifted. Naruto took a slow breath, his eyes sharp with interest. "All right, I'm listening." The hum of the airplane engines filled the cabin, but inside, the Japan national team sat in near silence. The World Cup was over, France had won it all. Some players were exhausted, slumped in their seats, eyes shut as they tried to escape the reality of their elimination. Others stared out the windows, their minds still replaying every moment of the tournament. Naruto, however, wasn't thinking about the past. His body was relaxed, but his mind was already moving forward. He leaned back, stretching his arms behind his head, stealing a glance toward Sae. The midfielder sat across the aisle, earphones in, pretending to be asleep. But Naruto knew better, Sae wasn't sleeping. He was thinking, just like him. Because despite everything, their World Cup dream being crushed, the frustration of carrying an entire team on their backs, they had accomplished something huge. They had forced the world to acknowledge them. Naruto shifted in his seat, his fingers tapping against his thigh. Outside the airplane window, the Tokyo skyline was beginning to appear on the horizon. He could already feel it. The entire country was waiting for them. And when they landed, things would never be the same again. As the plane descended, the Japan national team braced themselves for what awaited them outside. The moment they stepped off the aircraft, they were immediately blinded by flashing lights. Reporters. Cameras. Fans. Hundreds of people packed into the arrival terminal, all desperate to catch a glimpse of the players who had shaken up the football world. Naruto didn't even flinch. He had expected this. What he hadn't expected. was the respect. As he and SAE walked through the crowded terminal, the murmurs from the crowd were different this time. Before the World Cup, Japan saw them as arrogant kids. But now? They saw them as the future. Look, it's Uzumaki. He's the real deal, huh? He carried the team. And Itoshi too, man. Japan would have been destroyed without them. Naruto felt the shift in energy. For the first time, Japan truly saw him. Not as some rich kid trying to play football. Not as an arrogant teenager. But as one of the best players they had ever seen. And he loved every second of it. The Japan Football Union had arranged a formal press conference for the returning team. It was meant to be a standard affair, thank the fans, reflect on the tournament, talk about the future. But from the moment the head coach took his seat at the table, it was clear this was going to be anything but routine. The reporters were waiting. And they were angry. The second the floor opened for questions, they pounced. Coach, many people believe that Japan's old-school tactics held the team back. Why did it take so long to start trusting the younger players? The coach cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. We had experienced players who deserved the first chance. But they failed. And then the team only started performing once you put Uzumaki and Itoshi in. Why didn't you start them from the beginning? The coach gripped the microphone tightly. It was a difficult decision. No, it wasn't, another reporter snapped. Everyone saw it. The old generation failed. You were forced to rely on Uzumaki and Itoshi, and when you did, Japan finally played like a team that could win. Isn't it true that if you had used them earlier, Japan might still be in the tournament? The room buzzed with murmurs. The coach was cornered, and for the first time, he had no excuses left. Naruto, sitting further down the table, leaned back in his chair, a small smirk forming on his lips. He didn't even need to say anything. The media was doing it for him. As the press continued tearing into the coaching staff, the conversation naturally shifted toward the future of Japanese football. One reporter cleared his throat, his voice firm. We've seen the rise of young talent in this tournament. It's clear that Japan's future lies in players like Uzumaki and Itoshi. Some analysts have even started calling them part of the new generation 11. Naruto raised an eyebrow. New generation 11? Sounded kinda cool. SAE, sitting beside him, let out a tired sigh. Great. More labels. Naruto chuckled. Relax, midfield prince. It suits you. SAE clicked his tongue but didn't argue. The press conference was nearing its end, and despite the tension in the room, one thing had been made clear. Naruto Uzumaki and SAE Itoshi were no longer just young talents. They were the face of Japan's future. But soon, a new group will arrive and try take it from them. The night air was cool against Naruto's skin as he stepped outside, stretching his arms over his head. The press conference had been exhausting not physically, but mentally. He had let the reporters ask their questions, let them pick apart Japan's failure, and watched as the head coach got torn apart on live television. It wasn't his problem anymore. The new generation 11. That was what they were calling him and SAE now. Naruto chuckled to himself, leaning against the wall just outside the venue as he scrolled through his phone. The notifications were insane from mentions, reposts, stories, DMs. 1 million followers. He had broken 1 million. The World Cup had changed everything. His stock was through the roof now. He wasn't just another promising player anymore, he was a name. A player people had to watch. Humph. That's what happens when I take the field. A voice next to him made him glance up. SAE stood beside him, hands in his pockets, his usual uninterested expression on his face. You enjoying the fame already? Naruto smirked, locking his phone. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. SAE scoffed. Figures. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They had spent weeks together, carrying Japan on their backs, and now, it was over. It almost felt strange to be heading in different directions again. Naruto exhaled, pushing off the wall. So, what now, SAE? SAE tilted his head slightly, glancing toward the Tokyo skyline. First, I'll renew my passport and go back to Spain. Real still needs me. Naruto hummed. Yeah, guess we'll meet again soon. SAE finally turned toward him, his eyes narrowing slightly. You really think you're gonna take my spot? Naruto grinned, his voice dripping with confidence. Not your spot, midfield prince. But Luna's? Yeah, I'm coming for it. SAE let out a quiet breath through his nose, almost like a laugh. You're ridiculous. Naruto shrugged. You love it. SAE clicked his tongue, turning away. TCH. See you around, Emperor. Naruto smirked as he watched SAE walk away, his mind already moving toward the future. Real, that was the end goal. But for now he had a home to return to. As soon as Naruto climbed into the back seat of his private car, he let out a long exhale, his body sinking into the seat. The city lights blurred past outside the window, Tokyo's energy still alive even in the late hours. His driver glanced at him through the rear-view mirror. Welcome back, Uzumaki-sama. Naruto chuckled, waving him off. Come on, man, you don't need to be formal. Just Naruto's fine. The driver gave a small nod before focusing back on the road. Naruto pulled out his phone again, scrolling through his notifications. It was insane how fast things had changed. 1.2 million followers. Just a few months ago, he was barely at 60K. The World Cup had done numbers for him. Messages flooded his inbox. Some were from players. Others from fans. Some from random brands trying to get him to promote their stuff. And then, there were the ones that mattered. A missed call from Inori. Some messages from Lorenzo. Texts from his parents. He clicked on the one from Kushina first. Mom, where are you? We're waiting. Hurry up before your father starts crying. Naruto rolled his eyes, shaking his head with a smirk. Of course, his mom was the same as ever. He quickly typed a response. Naruto, on my way. Tell Dad to hold the tears for a little longer. Then, he switched over to his other messages. Lorenzo, Yo Emperor. We gotta talk when you're free. Some interesting stuff happening over here in Ubers. Naruto leaned his head back, raising an eyebrow. Interesting, huh? He quickly typed back. Naruto, I'll catch up with you tomorrow. Then, the last one Inori. She had called him twice. And left a simple text. Inori, call me when you get back. We need to talk. Naruto exhaled through his nose, tapping the screen absent-mindedly. We need to talk. He wasn't sure if that sounded good or bad. Still, he texted back. Naruto, gotcha. We'll talk tomorrow. His eyes flicked back to Instagram for a moment. It had been a while since he posted. Might as well remind the world that he wasn't done yet. He quickly selected a few photos from the World Cup, his iconic free kick, a shot of him standing with SAE, and a candid moment of him staring at the pitch after the Spain match. Then, he typed out his caption. Naruto Uzumaki. Thanks for all the support. We're just getting started. Hashtag fighting, hashtag just getting started, hashtag chills. He hit post. The moment it went live, his notifications exploded again. A smirk played on his lips. The World Cup might have ended, but his story was just beginning. As the car turned onto the familiar road leading to his home, Naruto stretched his arms and rolled his neck. Tomorrow, he would figure out his next move after his talk with Ego. Naruto wanted to stay in Japan for a while. But tonight? He was just Naruto Uzumaki, coming home. The gates slid open as Naruto's car pulled into the massive driveway of the Uzumaki estate. As the car came to a stop, Naruto exhaled, stretching his arms above his head before stepping out. He barely had time to close the door before Naruto A blur of red hair crashed into him, arms wrapping around his neck in a bone-crushing hug. Naruto stumbled back slightly, his hands instinctively catching his mother, before she strangled him to death. DMN, Mom can't breathe. I don't care. Kushina pulled back just enough to grab his face in her hands, her violet eyes fierce with emotion. My baby was just at the World Cup. My baby scored 4 against Spain. Naruto groaned, his ears ringing as his mother shook him back and forth like a ragdoll. Minato, the calmer of the two, stepped forward with his usual warm smile. Welcome home, son. Kushina finally let go, but only to smack his shoulder. You little BRT. Why didn't you text more? You had us glued to the TV every second. Naruto rubbed his arm with a smirk. Didn't know you were such a fan. Kushina glared. Of course, I'm a fan, you idiot. You're my son. Minato chuckled, stepping beside them. She was practically breaking my hand every time you took a shot. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Every shot? Minato sighed dramatically. Yes. I'm lucky to still have bones. Kushina smacked his arm. You're being dramatic. Minato simply smiled. You're just too passionate, dear. Naruto grinned, shaking his head. Yeah, this was home. Naruto tossed his duffel bag onto the couch. Kushina was already in the kitchen, firing up a meal, muttering to herself about how her son probably hadn't eaten a proper home-cooked dish in months. Minato sat beside him at the dining table, resting his chin on his hand. So how does it feel? Naruto blinked. Huh? Minato's blue eyes studied him. Your life changed overnight. You're a household name now, Naruto. Naruto exhaled, tilting his head slightly. Yeah. It had changed. He had over 1 million followers. The world had finally seen him. And yet he felt the same. It's weird. Naruto finally admitted, leaning back in his chair. I don't really feel different. I just want to play more. Minato chuckled. You sound just like your mother when she was younger. From the kitchen, Kushina shouted over her shoulder. That's because I was the best. Until someone knocked me up. Minato sighed, shaking his head with an amused smile. No regrets. Naruto snorted. You two never change. A few moments later, Kushina walked over, placing a steaming bowl of ramen in front of Naruto. She crossed her arms, watching him carefully as he took the first bite. Naruto froze. Then, he exhaled through his nose. God, I missed this. Kushina smirked. DMN right you did. But then, her expression softened. I'm proud of you. Naruto looked up, a little surprised. Kushina's eyes shone with emotion. I mean it, she continued. You did something incredible out there. You proved that you belong on the world stage. She placed a hand on his cheek, gently this time. No matter what happens next, don't forget you're a star, Naruto. And you're only getting started. For once, Naruto didn't have an attitude response. He simply nodded, taking another bite, letting his mother's words sink in. The sun hung high in the sky, casting golden light over the rippling river. The cool breeze brushed against the tall grass where Naruto and Inori sat, the city's soft hum lingering in the background. The moment felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the roaring stadiums and flashing cameras that had filled Naruto's life for the past few months. He leaned back on his elbows, his gaze drifting toward the clouds. So, he started, what did you want to talk about? Beside him, Inori hugged her knees, her expression unreadable. It's about what I heard, Project Bluelock. Naruto hummed, his fingers absent-mindedly plucking at the grass. Yeah. Seems interesting, right? Inori tilted her head slightly. It does. But it also makes me wonder. Naruto glanced at her. Wonder what? She exhaled, watching the water flow. Why you don't qualify? At that, Naruto smirked. because they want to develop the ultimate striker in Japan. He gestured vaguely toward the skyline. And even though I'm Japanese, I was made in Europe. Inori nodded, her sharp eyes locking onto his. Exactly. The whole point of Bluelock is to create Japan's first truly world-class striker. And you, she hesitated before continuing, you already are one. Naruto's smirk widened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. So why are you interested in it? She pressed. His expression turned thoughtful, his voice quieter this time. Because from what I've heard, ego might be the key to the future of Japanese football. Inori watched him carefully as he continued. Look at what happened in the World Cup. Me and SAE were the only ones who actually played at the highest level. The rest? They weren't ready. Their football isn't ready. His golden blue eyes flickered with sharp focus. But ego, he has a plan. And I want to see what this so-called Bluelock is all about. Inori exhaled, rubbing her arm. I figured you'd say that. Naruto grinned. You know me too well. She rolled her eyes but couldn't fight the small smile, tugging at her lips. But before their conversation could continue, Naruto's attention shifted toward the pathway nearby. Two familiar figures walked in their direction. Naruto sat up slightly, narrowing his eyes. Wait a second, isn't that? Nagi Saishiro strolled lazily beside Ryo Mikage, his silver-white hair catching the sunlight as he yawned mid-step. Ryo, on the other hand, walked with purpose, his purple eyes scanning the surroundings before locking onto Naruto. Ryo's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Well. If it isn't Japan's golden boy. Naruto arched a brow, grinning. Ryo. Didn't expect to see you here. Naruto shrugged. Even emperors need a break. At that, Nagi tilted his head slightly, finally paying attention. His sleepy eyes scanned Naruto before he let out a quiet "oh" of realization. I know you. Naruto blinked. Do you? Nagi nodded slowly. You're Uzumaki and we've also met before. Naruto's eyes widened before a laugh rumbled in his chest. Oh, you're that lazy dude with the crazy ball control. Ryo looked between them, his brow furrowing. Wait, you two have met before? Naruto nodded. Not really met. More like I saw him flex his ridiculous control skills and thought, DMN, that's not normal. Ryo grinned. Yeah, well, now he actually plays football. Naruto's eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. Oh really? Before he could continue, he paused and gestured toward Inori. Anyway, introductions first. This is Inori Yuzuriha. Ryo's eyes flicked to Inori before a devilish smirk crept onto his face. DMN, Uzumaki, how'd you pull this off? Naruto, unfazed, casually leaned back on his hands. Maybe because I'm just handsome and one of the best players in the world? Ryo snorted. Ha, right. You're good, but you're not the only talent around here. Naruto's eyes gleamed with interest. Is that so? Ryo's grin widened. Me and Nagi have been working on our game. I'm pretty sure we could give you a run for your money. Naruto chuckled, stretching his arms before standing up. Wanna bet? Ryo's smirk grew sharper. Oh, you're on. He turned to Nagi. What do you think? You in? Nagi let out a lazy sigh, scratching his head. Didn't expect to play against Uzumaki, but why not? Could be fun. Naruto's eyes flashed, the competitive hunger within him reigniting. He cracked his knuckles, his emperor's eye gleaming like a predator spotting prey. Alright, then. Let's see what you two are made of. Inori shook her head beside them but couldn't hide the fond amusement in her eyes. It was nice to see Naruto relaxing, enjoying himself not as a World Cup player, not as a rising superstar, but as a kid who just loved football. The sound of concrete crunching underfoot mixed with the faint rustling of trees as Naruto, Inori, Ryo, and Nagi walked toward the small 6-on-6 street pitch nearby. The area was empty, perfect. As soon as they stepped onto the turf, Naruto rolled his shoulders, taking in the surroundings. The space wasn't huge, but it was enough. The walls surrounding the field made sure the ball would always be in play, and the compact space meant pure technical ability would be the deciding factor. Ryo was already spinning the ball between his fingers, a confident smirk playing on his lips. "So, what's the setup?" he asked, tossing the ball up and catching it smoothly. Naruto stretched his arms over his head before flashing a grin. 2v2, I'll take Inori. Inori blinked. What? Ryo let out a sharp laugh. Oh man, you're making it too easy for us. Naruto smirked, tossing an arm around Inori's shoulders. Come on, you're not scared, are you? She deadpanned. Naruto, I don't play football. Naruto hummed, tapping his chin dramatically. Nah, you play in my heart. Ryo gagged. God, please shut up. Nagi, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up, his gaze shifting lazily between Naruto and Inori. Wait, so, you're saying this is uneven? Naruto's grin widened. Exactly. Ryo narrowed his eyes. You're underestimating us. Naruto's emperor's eye flickered. No. I'm giving myself a handicap. Ryo scoffed, tossing the ball down and stepping onto the pitch. You really think you can carry the whole game alone? Naruto gave a casual shrug. Obviously. Nagi sighed, running a hand through his silver hair. That's kinda annoying. Naruto chuckled, his fingers cracking slightly as he flexed them. You should know by now, I don't lose. Ryo crossed his arms. Alright, then. If you're that confident, let's make this more interesting. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Go on. Ryo smirked. If we win, you post a story on Instagram saying, Ryo Mikage is my football senpai. Naruto blinked. Then, he let out a sharp bark of laughter. Okay. That's funny. He cracked his neck before his own smirk grew sharper. Alright. But if I win, you have to post, Naruto Uzumaki is my football daddy. Ryo froze. Nagi tilted his head. Football daddy? Naruto nodded seriously. Yeah, that's right. Ryo's eye twitched. Inori covered her mouth, failing to hide her growing smirk. Ryo, still twitching, finally muttered, You're insufferable. Naruto grinned. That's a yes, right? Ryo sighed, rubbing his temples. Fine. Nagi yawned. Whatever. Just don't make me do anything weird. Naruto patted his own chest. Just worry about keeping up, sleepyhead. Nagi's eyelids lifted slightly. That so? Naruto grinned. Ryo tossed the ball up, spinning it between his hands before letting it drop to his foot. The game was set. And now, it was time to see who would own the night. The sun cast a golden glow over the small, enclosed street pitch, the soft hum of the city surrounding them as Naruto, Inori, Ryo, and Nagi stepped onto the artificial turf. Naruto rolled his shoulders, exhaling slowly as his mind switched into game mode. His emperor's eye gleamed, scanning every angle of the tight field. This wasn't a World Cup stage, but for him, it didn't matter. Football was football. And when he played to win. Ryo casually rolled the ball under his foot, smirking. Alright, let's do this. Standard street rules, first to 5. Naruto grinned, placing his foot on the ball. Cool. Inori, you defend. I'll handle the rest. Inori blinked, giving him an unimpressed look. You do realize I don't play, right? Naruto chuckled. That's fine. Just stand your ground and get in their way. She sighed, shaking her head. This is gonna be embarrassing. Ryo laughed, spinning the ball on his finger. Alright, Naruto. Let's see if all that World Cup hype means anything on the streets. Naruto's smirk widened. Oh, you'll see. And with that, He flicked the ball up, tapped it forward, and the game was on. Ryo and Nagi immediately pressed forward, closing in to try and take the ball. Naruto, however, wasn't fazed in the slightest. With a swift step over into a lightning-fast La Croqueta, he slipped the ball between Ryo and Nagi, forcing them to separate instantly. Ryo lunged, but Naruto anticipated it. A lightning-quick elastico sent Ryo stumbling. TCH. Ryo clicked his tongue, already frustrated. Nagi switched immediately, his sharp reflexes kicking in as he positioned himself to block Naruto's next move. But Naruto's Emperor's Eye had already seen it coming. He dragged the ball back with his soul, then with an impossible sharp turn, nutmegged Nagi clean. The ball rolled behind him as Nagi turned his head, wide-eyed. Naruto grinned. Too slow. Inori watched, her mouth slightly open. This is the Emperor, the one everyone talks about. With both Nagi and Ryo caught off guard, Naruto wasted no time. He flicked the ball into the air with the outside of his boot, let it drop to his chest, and with a single touch, flicked it over Ryo's incoming slide. Then, without looking, he volleyed it cleanly into the net. The ball smacked against the metal fence, echoing through the pitch. Naruto turned casually, grinning as he placed his hands on his hips. You two might be my friends, but once we step on the pitch I don't play around. Ryo clenched his fist, biting his lip. DMN it. We knew this wouldn't be easy, but the gap between them felt massive. Nagi, however, remained still, his gray eyes locked onto Naruto. For the first time in a while, he felt excitement. And he wanted to win. Naruto jogged back to position, resting his hands behind his head. Alright, let's see what you two got. Ryo smirked. Fine, but teamwork will win this game, not just individual skill. Nagi yawned lazily, but his eyes remained sharp. Just pass me the ball, Ryo. Ryo kicked off, knocking the ball lightly back to himself before sending a perfectly weighted lob over Naruto's head toward Nagi. It was pinpoint. Naruto saw it coming, his Emperor's Eye immediately picking up Nagi's movement. But then, Nagi did something absurd. Instead of just taking the shot immediately, he faked a mid-air volley, forcing Inori, who had nervously tried to position herself, to move in panic. Then, with inhuman smoothness, he trapped the ball on the other side with his left foot, placing himself into a perfect shooting angle. To finish, he planted one hand onto the ground to balance himself, lifted his body back up, and struck a curling volley into the net. Or at least, he would have. Because just before his shot could connect, Naruto launched himself forward, blocking the ball with his forehead. The impact sent the ball bouncing back toward midfield, stopping the play immediately. Nagi landed, his mouth slightly open. Ryo's eyes were wide. What the hell? Naruto shook off the slight sting on his forehead, his grin never fading. If I didn't already know how insane your control was, you would have scored there. He pointed toward them, his Emperor's Eye flashing as he declared. But you won't score today. Not here. Not against me. Nagi stared at him for a long moment, his fingers flexing at his sides. Then, something inside him lit up. For the first time in a long time, he felt genuine excitement. I wanna beat Uzumaki. Ryo's ears perked. Ha! What was that? Nagi's lips curled slightly, his usual sleepy demeanor shifting just slightly. Let's go again. Naruto smirked, rolling his neck. Good. Come at me with everything you got. And just like that, the game had truly begun. Naruto rolled his shoulders, his eyes locked onto the two players in front of him. Ryo and Nagi. Two of Japan's new promising talents, one fueled by pure ambition, the other by instinctual genius. But against him? It wasn't enough. He had already scored once, and he had no intention of stopping. The game resumed, and Ryo immediately tried to play a fast 1-2 pass with Nagi, looking to bypass Naruto quickly. But Naruto's Emperor's Eye picked it up before it even happened. The moment Nagi tapped the ball toward Ryo, Naruto was already in motion. Ryo barely had time to react before Naruto was on him like a shadow, pressing him so tightly that he had no choice but to hesitate, and that hesitation was all Naruto needed. With a swift interception, Naruto cut the ball off cleanly, spinning around Ryo in one fluid motion. TCH. Ryo clicked his tongue, turning just in time to see Naruto already accelerating forward. Naruto felt the ball at his feet like an extension of his own body, weaving through the tight space with perfect precision. Nagi moved to challenge him, but Naruto anticipated it. His right foot flicked the ball up slightly, shifting it mid-air before launching another lightning-fast elastico. Nagi stumbled. Ryo lunged. Naruto's feet danced across the turf, his Emperor's Eye breaking down their movements like a puzzle, and before either of them could recover, but he was already past them. A single calm strike sent the ball flying into the top corner of the net. 2-0. Naruto let the impact settle before turning back toward them, his voice calm but filled with undeniable weight. You two are good. He tilted his head slightly, a grin curling on his lips. But I'm better. Ryo clenched his fists. DMNBSTD, it's like I can't even breathe against him. Nagi, however, wasn't frustrated. He was intrigued. It wasn't just that Naruto was better. It was the way he played. Nagi had always been able to react, always been able to adapt. But against Naruto, it felt impossible. He didn't just react, he saw everything. And that made Nagi's heart race. The game pressed on, and Naruto continued his relentless control. A fake shot into a sharp turn left Ryo chasing shadows. A feint followed by a nutmeg left Nagi frozen in place. He was toying with them. Ryo and Nagi adjusted their positioning, but it didn't matter. Naruto was always 2 steps ahead. Another shot. 3-0. A cheeky flick over Ryo's head before burying the ball into the bottom corner. 4-0. The gap was insane. And yet Nagi wasn't discouraged. He was excited. As the next play started, Ryo sent another high chip toward Nagi. Naruto moved immediately, his eyes already reading the play. But then something changed. Nagi, instead of controlling the ball as usual, suddenly shifted his body at the last moment. With a near-effortless flick, he redirected the ball behind Naruto, spinning his entire body in a way that shouldn't have been possible. Naruto's eyes widened. For the first time in the match he was outplayed. Nagi landed, balanced himself, and smashed the volley into the net. 4-1. Silence followed. Then Naruto grinned. Heh. Nagi landed, blinking as he looked down at his own foot. That was fun. Ryo exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Holy SHT, Nagi. Where was that 5 minutes ago? Nagi shrugged lazily, but his gray eyes remained locked onto Naruto. Uzumaki makes me want to try. Naruto stretched his arms, smirking. Good. Because I don't go easy on people who give up. Despite Nagi's evolution, it was still Naruto's game. The final play began, and Naruto exhaled slowly, letting himself sink completely into the rhythm of the game. As Ryo and Nagi pressed forward, Naruto read everything. Ryo feinted left, Naruto already knew. Nagi moved to overlap, Naruto anticipated it. With a single fluid motion, he cut through them both, his Emperor's Eye tearing through their defense like a blade. He stepped forward, planted his foot, and with complete ease sent the ball curling into the net one last time. 5-1. Game over. Naruto sighed, running a hand through his hair. Well, that was fun. Ryo groaned, rubbing his face. You're a monster. Nagi. Nagi just smiled. I wanna play again. Naruto smirked. Then get stronger. Next time, I won't let you score. As the 4 of them stepped off the field, Naruto tossed the ball back toward Ryo. Ryo caught it, still fuming. I'm not posting that stupid story, by the way. Naruto laughed. Yeah. I'll let it slide this time. Inori shook her head, arms crossed but smiling. You're ridiculous. Naruto smirked, tilting his head toward Nagi. So? What do you think of football now? Nagi stretched, sighing. Annoying. Then, his lips curled slightly. But fun. Naruto grinned. Good. Now let's see if you can keep up next time. The sun had dipped lower, casting a soft golden hue over the city as Naruto, Inori, Ryo, and Nagi made their way out of the small street pitch. Despite the casual setting, the match had been anything but friendly. Naruto had dominated. But Nagi had awakened something within himself, and that was exciting. Ryo was still fuming, muttering under his breath about how unfair Naruto's existence was, while Nagi just stretched lazily, his body still buzzing from the thrill of the game. Naruto, however, was about to check out completely until his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glancing at the screen. Itoshire SAE. Naruto raised an eyebrow before unlocking his phone. SAE, change of plans. I'm staying in Japan for a while. Naruto stopped walking. Huh? Inori looked at him curiously. What's up? Naruto ignored her for a moment, reading the next part of SAE's message. SAE, have you ever heard of Bluelock? Naruto's eyebrows shot up slightly. That name again. He had already spoken with Ego about it once, but hearing SAE mention it now was interesting. Naruto, without thinking, muttered aloud. Bluelock? That was a mistake. Because the moment those words left his mouth, Ryo and Nagi both snapped their heads toward him. Wait, how do you know about Bluelock? Ryo asked, eyes narrowing. Naruto immediately covered up, shoving his phone into his pocket. Oh, saw something about it online. Inori raised an eyebrow at him, but didn't call him out. Ryo, however, wasn't buying it. TCH. Right, sure. Just saw something online. But before Naruto could change the subject, Ryo crossed his arms, smirking slightly. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter, because me and Nagi are joining. Naruto blinked. Huh? Ryo's purple eyes shone with determination. We got an invite. Bluelock is looking for Japan's next best striker and we're in. Naruto's eyes flickered toward Nagi. You're going too? Nagi stretched, yawning lazily before nodding. Ryo said I should. So why not? Ryo grinned, confidence radiating from him. We're going so we can surpass you, Naruto. Next time, we won't be a step behind. Naruto paused. Then he grinned. Good. Can't wait to crush you both again. Ryo clicked his tongue. TCH, BSTD. Nagi, however, simply smirked slightly. Should be fun. Naruto felt a familiar excitement bubbling in his chest. First, Ego contacted him. Now, SAE was staying in Japan. And Ryo and Nagi were entering Bluelock. Something big was about to happen. And Naruto wanted to be right in the middle of it. The past few days had been unusually quiet for Naruto. After the whirlwind of the World Cup, the constant media buzz, and the street match with Ryo and Nagi, Naruto found himself breathing. Long walks with Inori. Lazy mornings. The occasional training session to keep his edge. No flashing cameras. No questions. No pressure. For the first time in a while, Naruto had the rare luxury of time to reflect. And yet, he could feel it. The pull of something greater. Because today wasn't just another day off. Today, he was meeting Jinpachi Ego, the man with the radical vision to reshape Japanese football. The man behind Bluelock. The sleek black car pulled up to a quiet facility tucked deep in the countryside, away from Tokyo's chaos. There were no flashy signs or banners, just a plain black gate and a high wall stretching beyond view. Naruto stepped out and gave his name. The gates opened automatically. He walked forward, sliding his hands into the pockets of his jacket as he walked past the threshold, the air heavier now, like the world beyond that gate had its own gravity. This was Bluelock. The very place where Ryo and Nagi were now battling through selection. And where Igo's vision was unfolding in secret. Naruto followed a suited staff member through a series of clean, sterile corridors until they reached a large, dimly lit room with a massive wall-length screen at the center. Dozens of camera feeds were active players running, training, shouting, failing, rising again. And at the center of it all stood a man. Tall. Thin. Bowl-cut style black hair. Square, cold-rimmed glasses that glinted under the low light. His hands were tucked into his pockets as he turned slowly to face Naruto, expression unreadable. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stopped a few feet from him, not bowing, not reaching for a handshake. Just meeting his gaze head-on. So you're the one trying to change football in Japan. Igo's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. And you're the anomaly. The exception Japan didn't raise but wishes it had. Naruto tilted his head. You called me here. Why? Igo stepped closer, gesturing toward the wall of screens. Because Bluelock isn't about comfort. It's not about tradition or teamwork. It's about evolution. The camera feed switched to one of the current matches in progress. Ryo and Nagi locked in a heated back and forth with other players. These kids? Igo continued. They were nothing. But put them in here and they'll be reborn. Or broken. Naruto watched in silence as Nagi pulled off an outrageous mid-air trap followed by a flick over a defender's head. Igo glanced at him. You're already a weapon. But weapons rust. My question is, are you willing to be sharpened even further? Naruto turned to him, eyes flashing. That's why I'm here, isn't it? Igo nodded. I want you to understand what this project truly means. I didn't invite you to play in the regular process, not because you don't deserve it, but because you're past that. You're the control variable. The standard everyone else is chasing. Naruto smirked. So, what happens now? Igo walked toward another screen, tapping a remote. Footage switched to various strikers, young, raw, egotistical. Now, he said. Now you watch. Learn. And wait. Because soon enough, they'll come for your throne. And when they do, you'll need to decide. He turned slowly. Will you rule from the top? Or fall with the rest? Naruto's smirk faded slightly, his jaw setting. He wasn't here to spectate. Next time he stepped on the pitch, he would remind them all who the Emperor truly was. Igo's gaze remained fixed on the screens as he began. France's recent World Cup victory was a showcase of individual brilliance, primarily from Noel Noah. Even at 31, he's the epitome of what a striker should be: relentless, intelligent, and, above all, egotistical. Naruto nodded as Igo continued. Noah's been at the top for years. But with emerging talents like Julian Loki, Michael Kaiser, Itoshir Sae, Pablo Cavazos, and yourself, the landscape is shifting. Igo's lips curled into a slight smile. The football world is on the cusp of a generational shift. New players are rising, ready to dethrone the old generation. But to truly revolutionize Japanese football, we need to cultivate the ultimate egoist, a striker who embodies the very essence of self-centered play. Naruto's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. So, Bluelock's purpose is to forge that kind of player? Igo nodded. Exactly. By isolating 300 young strikers and subjecting them to intense competition, we aim to distill the purest form of egotism: a striker who prioritizes their own glory above all else. Naruto glanced at the screens, observing the players' fierce determination. I see. Japan's lackluster performance in the World Cup, the JFA's desperation, and now this radical approach, it all aligns. His gaze settled on one screen reply where Nagi executed a flawless trap, his movements effortless yet precise. Among them, only Nagi stands out. His innate talent is undeniable. But the others, I'm not convinced they possess that unique spark. Igo's grin widened. Care to place a wager on that? Naruto raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you have in mind? Ego's eyes gleamed with ambition. We're organizing a match between Bluelock's finest and Japan's U20 national team. The stakes? A spot in the U20 World Cup. The JFA has already sanctioned it. Naruto crossed his arms. You believe these high schoolers stand a chance? And aren't they all strikers? Ego's expression remained confident. Indeed. But adversity breeds innovation. This challenge will force them to adapt, to evolve beyond their current selves. Naruto smirked. All right. What's the bet? Ego leaned in slightly. I want you to play in that match. Push these players to their limits. If none rise to the occasion, then perhaps Bluelock is a failure, and Japanese football remains stagnant. But if they shine, even briefly, I ask you to consider the future of Japanese football, to see the potential we're cultivating here. Naruto's eyes locked onto Ego's, a silent understanding passing between them. Challenge accepted. Let's see if your egoists can handle the real world. Before they could continue, the door slid open as Anne Retiree, Ego's diligent assistant, walked inside engrossed in her tablet, her fingers dancing across the screen as data streamed in. Anri looked up, her eyes widening in surprise as they met Naruto's. For a heartbeat, the composed professional facade slipped, replaced by the genuine awe of a fan meeting one of her idols. Uzumaki Naruto, she began, her voice tinged with admiration. It's an honor to meet you. I've followed your career closely and was captivated by your performance at the World Cup. Naruto offered a modest smile, scratching the back of his head, a habitual gesture when receiving praise. Thank you. I'm just doing my best out there. Anri's expression softened, a hint of regret shadowing her features. I must apologize on behalf of Japanese football. We've been slow to recognize and nurture young talent. It's my dream to see Japan lift the World Cup one day. Naruto's gaze met hers, sincerity evident in his eyes. I'm sorry I couldn't do more to make that dream a reality. She shook her head, a determined glint replacing the regret. No, you've been a beacon of hope. Your achievements inspire countless young players. Ego, observing the exchange with a hint of impatience, interjected. Anri, has our guests arrived? Anri straightened, professionalism returning. Yes, they're waiting in the adjacent conference room. A sly grin spread across Ego's face. Excellent. Let's not keep them waiting. He led the way, with Naruto and Anri following closely. As they entered the conference room, Naruto's eyes widened slightly, recognizing the figures seated around the sleek table. Julian Loki, Leonardo Luna, Adam Blake, Pablo Cavazos, Dada Silva. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken rivalries and mutual respect. Naruto's gaze locked with Loki's, a silent acknowledgement of their past encounters and the competitive fire that burned between them. Ego stepped forward, addressing the assembly in fluent English. Gentlemen, thank you for accepting my invitation. Your presence here is pivotal for the next phase of the Bluelock project. I intend to test our top candidates against world-class talent, yourselves. Loki leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. I must admit, I was surprised not to see you among the invitees, Naruto. Perhaps Ego only wanted the best strikers from the World Cup. Naruto chuckled, unfazed. I've already bested 2 of the 5 here. No hard feelings. Luna raised an eyebrow, feigning offense. That was uncalled for. Naruto's grin widened. Just stating facts. Adam Blake leaned forward, his British accent laced with challenge. Care to back those words on the pitch, mate? Dada Silva's deep voice rumbled with amusement. This little guy thinks he can take us on? Pablo Cavazos interjected, his Argentine accent smooth. How about a friendly match? A 3-on-3 to warm up before the main event. The proposal hung in the air, electrifying the room. Eyes met, silently gauging intentions and strategies. The competitive tension was palpable, each player eager to assert dominance. Ego observed the unfolding dynamics, a satisfied smile tugging at his lips. His plan to ignite competition and drive among these elite players was unfolding perfectly. Very well, Ego concluded. Let's see how you all measure up against each other. The group moved with a purpose, each step drawing them closer to the heart of Bluelock's training sanctum. Ego came to an abrupt halt before a set of imposing double doors, their sleek design hinting at the sophistication beyond. With a deliberate motion, he pressed his palm against a biometric scanner. A soft beep resonated, followed by the smooth hiss of the doors sliding open. As they stepped inside, the players were greeted by an expansive indoor pitch that defied expectations. The artificial grass underfoot was indistinguishable from the finest natural turf, meticulously crafted to replicate optimal playing conditions. Overhead, a vast domed ceiling stretched skyward, its translucent panels allowing natural light to cascade in, illuminating the field with a serene glow. The dimensions mirrored those of a six-a-side pitch, fostering an environment where close-quarters skill and rapid decision-making would be paramount. Surrounding the field, state-of-the-art facilities were seamlessly integrated. Ego's voice sliced through the reverent silence. Welcome to Bluelock's private match arena. This is where potential is forged into excellence, where theories are tested against reality. The players exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of the moment. Here, reputations would be challenged, skills scrutinized, and egos either validated or dismantled. Ego continued, his gaze unwavering. For today's exercise, teams have been assigned at random. Anri stepped forward with a tablet in hand. Her voice was clear, professional. The teams are as follows. Team White, Uzumaki Naruto, Leonardo Luna, Dada Silva. Team Blue, Julian Loki, Adam Blake, Pablo Cavazos. A ripple of anticipation coursed through the group. Alliances formed and rivalries ignited in an instant. Naruto's eyes met Loki's across the expanse, a spark of competitive fire passing between them. Memories of past encounters fueled the unspoken challenge. Loki's lips curved into a smirk. Seems fate enjoys our dance, Naruto. Naruto's response was a confident grin. Only this time, fate can't save you from this defeat. The door to the locker room closed with a soft thud, sealing Naruto, Luna, and Silva in a sanctuary of solitude and strategy. The room exuded a pristine ambience, with sleek lockers lining the walls and a central bench inviting contemplation. Naruto took a deep breath, the familiar scent of leather and liniment grounding him. He glanced at his teammates, both renowned in their own right. Luna, the Spanish dribbling virtuoso, sat with an air of relaxed confidence, his fingers rhythmically tapping on his knees. Silva, the Brazilian aerial powerhouse, stood by his locker, adjusting his gear. Breaking the silence, Naruto spoke, his voice steady. All right, gentlemen, we've been paired together by chance, but our synergy on the field will be by choice. Let's discuss how we can harmonize our strengths. Luna leaned back, a smirk playing on his lips. I thrive on close control and taking on defenders one-on-one. Give me the ball in tight spaces, and I'll dance through them. Silva nodded, his deep voice resonating. I'm most effective in the air. Crosses, set pieces, if you can deliver the ball high into the box, I'll be there to finish. Naruto absorbed their input, his mind already weaving a tactical tapestry. Understood. Luna, your dribbling can draw defenders out, creating pockets of space. Dada, your presence in the box will keep their defense on edge. I'll operate as the link between midfield and attack, distributing the ball and exploiting any gaps. Luna's eyes gleamed with intrigue. Sounds like a plan. But what about defense? We're all naturally attacking players. You know, Naruto began, a confident smile spreading across his face, while I'm effective in offense, my true strength lies in my versatility. My eyes never fail me. Luna raised an eyebrow, intrigued. So, it's true then? You can see the future. Naruto nodded. Pretty much. It's like having a heightened perception that lets me see the subtlest cues, muscle tension, shifts in balance. This enables me to foresee and counter their moves effectively. Silva leaned in, interest peaked. That could be a game changer. With your defensive insight, we can disrupt their plays before they gain momentum. Naruto's eyes sparkled with determination. That's the plan. I'll anchor our defense, intercepting passes and challenging their advances. This will allow you both to focus more on offense, knowing I'll be there to back you up. Luna nodded appreciatively. With your defensive prowess, Dada's aerial dominance, and my dribbling skills, we have a well-rounded team. Silva grinned. Let's leverage these strengths and take control of the game. In the adjacent locker room, a different energy permeated the air. Julian Loki, Adam Blake, and Pablo Cavazos occupied the space, each emanating a distinct aura of confidence and determination. Loki broke the silence, his French accent adding a melodic lilt to his words. We've been assembled as Team Blue. Let's ensure our collaboration is as formidable as our individual reputations. Blake, the English powerhouse, leaned against his locker, arms crossed. I'm all about physicality. I'll challenge them in duels, win aerial battles, and hold up the ball to bring you both into play. Pablo, the Argentine maestro, nodded thoughtfully. My strength lies in vision and precision. I can dictate the tempo, deliver incisive passes, and exploit any defensive frailties. Loki's eyes narrowed, processing the information. Excellent. I'll utilize my speed to make penetrating runs behind their defense. Pablo, with your vision, you can feed those runs. Adam, your hold-up play can draw their defenders, creating space for us. Blake grinned. Sounds like a recipe for goals. Pablo added, defensively, we must remain compact. Let's press as a unit and transition swiftly when we regain possession. Loki agreed. Communication is vital. Let's keep each other informed, cover for one another, and maintain our structure. The moment the doors swung open, a breath of crisp, artificial air swept past them. The pristine pitch inside the arena gleamed under the perfectly tuned lights above, casting sharp shadows and highlighting every blade of grass. The sound of boots against concrete echoed like war drums as the players made their way onto the six-a-side field, one that looked and felt just like a miniaturized stadium. Team White emerged first, Naruto leading, flanked by Luna and Silva. Naruto's posture was relaxed, but his eyes, those sharp, glinting eyes, shimmered with calculation. Luna followed, rolling his shoulders and cracking his neck, his gaze casual but focused. Silva jogged a few steps ahead, doing a few quick leg stretches, his long frame already twitching for action. Across the pitch, Team Blue stepped out with an entirely different aura. Loki walked with his usual arrogance, smirking as he twirled the ball on his finger. He caught Naruto's eyes across the field and winked, playful but filled with venom. Blake stomped onto the turf like a soldier entering battle. Thickly built and powerful, he cracked his knuckles and sized up Silva, already itching to impose himself physically. Cavazos was the last to step out, quiet and composed, his arms folded across his chest as he analyzed the setup in silence. His eyes scanned like a machine, already processing strategies, angles, and weaknesses. The pitch buzzed with tension as the six players met at midfield. No referees needed. Ego himself sat high above in the observation deck, arms crossed, grinning like a mad scientist. Henry sat beside him, tablet in hand, eyes bouncing between live data feeds and the field. You've all been briefed, Ego's voice rang through the intercom, smooth and loud. No fouls. No stoppage. The first team to 5 goals wins. Show me what peak egotism looks like. The players moved to their starting positions. Naruto crouched slightly, eyeing the 3 players across from him. His teammates spread wide. Luna to the left wing, Silva deep in the middle. As he bounced lightly on his toes, Naruto spoke without turning. Let's hit them fast. Luna, pull their formation wide. Silva, be ready for a cutback. I'll handle the opening play. Luna chuckled. Straight into command, huh? I like it. Silva nodded once, cracking his neck. Let's eat. Across from them, Loki passed the ball to himself with his heel and looked to Blake and Pablo. They're gonna come hard. Let's hit back harder. The ball was placed at the center spot. Ego's voice came again. Begin. The match had started. The whistle echoed through the indoor arena, signaling the commencement of the match. Naruto stood at the center of the field, the ball poised beneath his foot. His teammates, Leonardo Luna and Dada Silva, positioned themselves strategically, ready to execute their plan. Across from them, Team Blue, Julian Loki, Adam Blake, and Pablo Cavazos, mirrored their readiness, anticipation etched on their faces. As the ball rolled forward, Naruto's eyes shimmered with an intense light, the manifestation of his Emperor's Eye. He initiated a swift advance, the ball gliding seamlessly with each touch. Loki, recognizing the threat, surged forward to challenge him. But Naruto had already predicted this move. With a deft feint to the right, he caused Loki to commit, then pivoted sharply to the left, leaving the French prodigy momentarily off balance. Naruto's gaze flicked towards Blake, who was closing in from the flank, his imposing physique ready to intercept. Utilizing his Emperor's Eye, Naruto discerned the slight hesitation in Blake's stride, a telltale sign of his intention to tackle. Exploiting this, Naruto executed a sudden acceleration, slipping past Blake's outstretched leg with millisecond precision. Approaching the penalty area, Naruto sensed Cavazos positioning himself to block any direct shots. Instead of taking the expected strike, Naruto delivered a no-look pass to Luna, who had maneuvered into an open space on the left wing. The ball met Luna's foot flawlessly, a testament to Naruto's vision and spatial awareness. Luna, capitalizing on the precise assist, unleashed a powerful shot towards the goal. The ball soared past the goalkeeper, netting the first point for Team White. Team White 1-0 Team Blue. Team White, led by Naruto, had drawn first blood with a masterful display of synergy and strategy. Yet, the match was far from over. As the players reset for the next play, the intensity in their eyes spoke volumes of the battle yet to unfold. Loki stood over the ball at the center circle. His gaze, sharp and calculating, met Naruto's across the pitch, a silent acknowledgement of the challenge ahead. With a swift tap, Loki initiated the play, propelling the ball to Pablo Cavazos. Cavazos received the pass with finesse, his rainbow-colored hair catching the arena's lights. Known for his impeccable kick accuracy and the unpredictable, vertical spinning shot, he was a formidable opponent. As he advanced, his eyes scanned the field, seeking an opening. Naruto's eye was observing Cavazos' posture and the angle of his gaze. Naruto discerned his intent to execute a long pass to Adam Blake, England's top Premier League scorer, known for his physical dominance. Anticipating this, Naruto surged forward, intercepting the pass mid-flight with a well-timed leap. Upon regaining possession, Naruto wasted no time transitioning from defense to offense. With a deft touch, he maneuvered past Cavazos, his movements a blend of agility and grace. He then delivered a precise through ball to Luna. Luna, embracing the opportunity, showcased his close-control dribbling, weaving through Team Blue's defense with mesmerizing footwork. Approaching the penalty area, he faced a formidable obstacle, Adam Blake, whose imposing physique and defensive capabilities were well documented. The confrontation between Luna and Blake was a spectacle of contrasting styles, finesse against brute strength. Luna feinted left, then right, attempting to unbalance Blake. However, Blake's experience and physicality allowed him to match Luna's agility, blocking his path effectively. Sensing the stalemate, Naruto, having advanced in support, called for the ball. As Luna executed a backheel pass to Naruto, who was positioned just outside the penalty box. With the ball at his feet and a clear sight of the goal, Naruto's Emperor's Eye analyzed the goalkeeper's stance, the defensive alignments, and the optimal trajectory for a strike. The golden light shined brightly. Drawing back his foot, he unleashed a powerful, golden finesse shot aimed at the top corner of the net. The goalkeeper, despite a valiant effort, was unable to reach the ball as it sailed past him, nestling into the net with a satisfying ripple. Team White 2-0 Team Blue. Team White had secured their second goal, further asserting their dominance on the field. The scoreboard glowed with Team White leading 2-0, a testament to Naruto's strategic mastery and the seamless synergy of his team. Yet, across the pitch, Loki's eyes burned with a resolve that refused to be extinguished. He gathered his teammates, Blake and Cavassos, into a tight huddle, the air between them crackling with unspoken determination. Loki's voice was low but firm, cutting through the ambient noise of the arena. Naruto's Emperor's Eye grants him an almost supernatural ability to predict and counter our moves, he began, his gaze locking onto each teammate in turn. But no vision, no matter how sharp, can anticipate the truly unpredictable. Blake frowned. So, what are you suggesting? A sly smile played on Loki's lips. We abandon conventional play. Short, rapid passes, constant position switches, and unorthodox movements. We create organized chaos that even the Emperor's Eye cannot decipher in time. Cavassos nodded slowly. It's risky, but it might just disrupt their rhythm. Loki's eyes gleamed. Exactly. Let's rewrite the narrative of this match. As the whistle signaled the continuation, Team Blue executed their newfound strategy with meticulous fervor. Loki initiated a swift pass to Cavassos, who, instead of advancing, immediately redirected the ball to Blake. This rapid exchange continued, the ball zipping between them like a pinball, each player moving in unpredictable patterns that defied traditional formations. Naruto, positioned centrally, activated his Emperor's Eye, the world around him slowing as he analyzed the unfolding play. However, the erratic nature of Team Blue's movements presented a conundrum. The constant flux and lack of discernible patterns made it arduous to predict their next move with his usual precision. The only flaw his eye had was it could only watch one person at a time. He adjusted his stance, muscles coiled like a spring, ready to react. Yet, for the first time in the match, a piece of uncertainty crept into his mind. Capitalizing on the momentary hesitation, Loki exploited a narrow channel on the right flank. Receiving a deft pass from Cavassos, he accelerated, his renowned speed propelling him past Luna. With a swift cut inside, Loki approached the penalty area, his eyes scanning for options. Blake, recognizing the opportunity, made a diagonal run, drawing Silva with him and creating a void in the defines. Loki seized this opening, executing a sharp turn and delivering a precise, low-driven shot towards the far post. The ball kissed the inside of the post before nestling into the net. Team White 2-1 Team Blue. The scoreboard now read 2-1, with Team White maintaining a slim lead. The intensity on the field was palpable, as both teams recognized the pivotal nature of the next few plays. Naruto recognized that relying solely on his Emperor's Eye wouldn't suffice against Team Blue's adaptive strategies. He needed to integrate his teammates more effectively and disrupt the synergy that Loki had cultivated. Luna, Naruto called out, his voice steady yet commanding. We need to press higher up the pitch. Apply pressure early and force them into making errors. Luna nodded, his dribbling prowess ready to be unleashed in a more aggressive role. Silva, Naruto turned to the towering Brazilian forward. Use your physicality to dominate the aerial duels. Challenge Blake directly and disrupt their forward momentum. Silva's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Leave it to me, he rumbled, his deep voice resonating with confidence. As play resumed, the focus shifted to the midfield, where Silva and Adam Blake prepared for an inevitable confrontation. The ball soared high, a lofted pass intended for Blake. Silva anticipated the trajectory, positioning himself to intercept. As both players leaped, the collision was thunderous, echoing throughout the arena. Muscles tensed and eyes locked, each refusing to yield. Blake gritted his teeth, pushing against Silva's formidable frame. You're strong, he admitted, a grudging respect in his tone. Silva smirked, his dreadlocks swaying as they descended. You're not so bad yourself, he replied. But strength alone won't get you past me. The ball ricocheted off Silva's head, clearing the immediate danger. However, the confrontation had ignited a spark, a personal duel that would continue to simmer beneath the surface. The physicality of the match intensified, with challenges becoming more robust and tempers beginning to flare. Loki and Naruto's rivalry added fuel to the fire, their mutual disdain evident in every exchange. At one point, Loki executed a dazzling dribble, attempting to bypass Naruto. Naruto anticipated the move, stepping in to intercept. Their shoulders collided, and for a brief moment, They stood face to face, breaths heavy and eyes narrowed. Trying to keep up, Uzumaki? Loki taunted, a smirk playing on his lips. Naruto's gaze was unwavering. I don't keep up, he retorted. I set the pace. Recognizing the escalating aggression, Naruto adjusted his approach. He began to utilize quick, short passes, aiming to control possession and dictate the tempo. Luna's agility and Silva's strength became pivotal, as they executed 1-2 passes and shielded the ball effectively. Team Blue responded in kind. With Loki orchestrating plays that leveraged Blake's physicality and Pablo Cavazos' precision. The match evolved into a chess game, each move met with a calculated counter, the tension mounting with every passing second. Silva's demeanor shifted towards overconfidence. He began to taunt Blake subtly, a smirk here, a dismissive gesture there, underestimating the Englishman's resolve. Blake was not one to be easily intimidated. He recognized Silva's growing arrogance and saw an opportunity to exploit it. Recalling past experiences where opponents' overconfidence led to their downfall, Blake decided to bide his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Loki observed the psychological interplay between Silva and Blake. Sensing an advantage, he orchestrated a series of plays designed to isolate Silva and draw him out of position. By increasing the tempo and utilizing quick, short passes, the opportunity materialized when Loki delivered a precise through ball to Blake, who was positioned near the edge of the penalty area. Silva, eager to assert his dominance, charged forward aggressively, abandoning his defensive stance. Blake anticipated this rash move and executed a deft sidestep, allowing Silva's momentum to carry him past the play. With a clear path to the goal, Blake unleashed a powerful strike that sailed past the goalkeeper, leveling the score. Team White 2-2 Team Blue. As the ball hit the back of the net, Naruto's eyes narrowed, the glow of his Emperor's eye intensifying. He understood the ramifications of Silva's overconfidence and the necessity for mental discipline. Silva approached Naruto, a defensive edge in his posture. Look, Uzumaki, he began, his tone laced with frustration, I was just trying to. Before he could finish, Naruto turned sharply, his piercing blue eyes locking onto Silva's with a ferocity that halted the larger man mid-sentence. The air between them grew thick, the weight of Naruto's unspoken reprimand pressing down on Silva. The usual bravado that Silva carried seemed to wither under the intensity of Naruto's glare. Enough, Naruto's voice was low, steady, but carried an undeniable authority. We can't afford mistakes born from arrogance. Silva swallowed hard, nodding silently. Something about that look unnerved him, a primal warning that transcended words. Luna observed the exchange from a few paces away. A subtle smile played on his lips as he murmured to himself, so he's finally taking it seriously. He had seen glimpses of Naruto's leadership before, but this was different, a manifestation of the Emperor that others spoke of in hushed tones. Loki noticed the shift in Naruto's demeanor. Sensing an opportunity to unsettle his rival, Loki sauntered closer, a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. What's this, Uzumaki? Finally decided to wake up? Naruto didn't flinch. Instead, he took a step forward, closing the distance between them. His eyes, alight with the formidable power of the Emperor's eye, bore into Loki's with unwavering resolve. The smirk faded from Loki's face as the intensity of Naruto's presence washed over him. Come, Naruto's voice was a challenge, clear and commanding. It's about time I taught you who's in charge around here. The players on both teams sensed the gravity of the moment. The playful banter and competitive jabs that had characterized the match thus far gave way to a solemn anticipation. The Emperor had fully awakened, and all eyes were on the impending clash between two generational talents. All right, Uzumaki, Loki replied, his voice steady but lacking its usual attitude. Let's see what you've got. Remember not to break a leg this time. As the whistle blew, signaling the resumption of play, Naruto's eyes, illuminated by the formidable power of the Emperor's eye, locked onto Loki. The world around him seemed to slow, every movement of his opponents laid bare before his penetrating gaze. Naruto anticipated Loki's trajectory with uncanny precision. He adjusted his position, muscles coiled like a spring, ready to pounce. As Loki attempted to cut inside, Naruto was already there, intercepting the ball with a deft touch and seamlessly transitioning into a counterattack. With possession secured, Naruto orchestrated the play, directing his teammates with authoritative gestures. He delivered a pinpoint pass to Luna, who crossed the ball into the box for Silva. Silva channeled his focus, controlling the ball with finesse unexpected for a player of his imposing stature. He shielded it from Adam Blake, using his body as a fortress, before executing a swift turn and unleashing a powerful strike that found the back of the net. Team White 3-2 Team Blue. On the other side, Loki's expression hardened. The exchange had ignited his competitive spirit. He recognized the challenge before him and was resolved to meet it head-on. The duel between him and Naruto was far from over. Loki positioned himself near the center circle, eyes locked onto the play unfolding before him. With a subtle nod to his teammate, Cavassos, he signaled for the pass. Cavassos, recognizing the intent, delivered a crisp, low ball to Loki's feet. The moment the ball made contact, Loki exploded into action. His acceleration was instantaneous, propelling him forward with a burst that left the air vibrating in his wake. The sheer force of his takeoff was reminiscent of a sprinter launching from the blocks, every muscle in his body coordinating to achieve maximum propulsion. Naruto, positioned defensively, recognized the imminent threat. Activating his Emperor's Eye, he attempted to predict Loki's trajectory. However, Loki's movements were a masterclass in unpredictability. He weaved through the midfield with a serpentine grace, each step calculated yet fluid, making it nearly impossible to anticipate his next move. Luna and Silva moved to intercept, forming a defensive pincer aimed at containing the French prodigy. Yet, as they closed in, Loki executed a dazzling display of agility. With a deft touch, he nudged the ball forward and, in a blur, slipped between them, leaving both grasping at empty space. Now clear of the midfield, Loki bore down on the goal, with only the goalkeeper standing between him and the equalizer. His eyes, alight with determination, locked onto the target. Drawing his foot back, he prepared to strike. But Naruto was not one to concede easily. Summoning every ounce of his own speed, he closed the distance as he executed a flawless slide tackle, his timing impeccable. The ball was cleanly stripped from Loki's control, and the French striker found himself unceremoniously grounded. Naruto rose smoothly, not offering a hand to his fallen opponent. His gaze was cold. "Remember," Naruto intoned, his voice carrying the weight of past encounters, "Ego said no fouls." Before Loki could respond, a cheer erupted from the Silva. Both players turned to see Luna celebrating, the ball nestled in the back of Team Blue's net. The scoreboard now read 4-2 in favor of Team White. Naruto's attention returned to Loki, a smirk playing on his lips. "You might beat nearly anyone in a one-on-one," he conceded, "but against me, your speed means nothing." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Lower your head, God Sprinter." The field was silent, the weight of Naruto's statement hanging in the air as the match edged closer to its climax. As the final whistle echoed through the Bluelock facility's private match arena, the scoreboard displayed a decisive 6-3 victory for Team White. The players, drenched in sweat and breathing heavily, exchanged nods of respect before making their way off the field. In the observation room overlooking the pitch, Henry stood beside Ego, her eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and contemplation. She had witnessed countless matches, but Naruto's performance today had been nothing short of extraordinary. "Naruto is truly different from any player I've seen," Henry remarked, her voice tinged with awe. Ego adjusted his glasses, a rare glint of intrigue flashing across his usually impassive face. "His eyes are special," he responded, acknowledging the unique perception and foresight Naruto exhibited on the field. Henry hesitated for a moment before sharing the latest development. The Japan Football Association has confirmed that Itoshire Sae will be playing in the upcoming match. A smirk tugged at the corner of Ego's lips. "Then the stage is truly set," he mused, the prospect of such a high-stakes confrontation aligning perfectly with his vision for Bluelock. As the players exited the field below, their expressions a blend of exhaustion and exhilaration, Ego's mind raced with possibilities. The forthcoming match against Japan's under-20 team would be more than just a game, it would be a crucible to forge the ultimate striker. Anything can happen, Ego murmured, more to himself than to Henry. His gaze remained fixed on the departing players, each a potential diamond awaiting the right pressure to reveal its brilliance. Henry, sensing the weight of the moment, nodded in agreement. Who will surpass their limits, she pondered aloud, the question hanging in the air like a challenge to the future. As the observation room fell into contemplative silence, both knew that the answers would soon unfold on the pitch, where talent, ego, and ambition would collide in the ultimate test of footballing prowess. Ego remained seated in the observation room, his steepled fingers resting against his lips. The recent match had provided much to contemplate, but his thoughts drifted to an alternate scenario, one where Uzumaki Naruto had been part of the Bluelock project from its inception. In this imagined reality, Naruto hadn't been scouted by Real and sent to their esteemed academy. Instead, he had entered Bluelock alongside the other 299 strikers, subjected to the same rigorous trials and psychological crucibles. Ego envisioned Naruto navigating the cutthroat environment, his innate talents honed and challenged by the program's relentless demands. Ego pondered how Naruto's unique abilities, his exceptional field vision, uncanny anticipation, and indomitable will would have evolved within Bluelock's confines. Would the structured chaos of the project have amplified his strengths, or would it have exposed unforeseen weaknesses? The thought intrigued Ego, as he recognized that Naruto's current prowess had been shaped by experiences outside his own design. Furthermore, Ego considered the ripple effects Naruto's presence would have had on the other participants. His leadership qualities and competitive spirit might have elevated the collective performance, pushing others to transcend their limitations. Conversely, his dominance could have overshadowed emerging talents, altering the delicate balance Ego sought to cultivate. Leaning back in his chair, Ego exhaled slowly. In another world, he mused aloud, Naruto could have been the cornerstone of Bluelock. A wry smile touched his lips. I wonder how much different he would be. The notion lingered, a tantalizing what if that underscored the unpredictable nature of talent development. While Ego prided himself on his methodologies, he acknowledged that paths to greatness were myriad and often beyond orchestration. Shaking off the reverie, Ego refocused on the present trajectory. Naruto's journey had been unconventional, yet it had led him to this pivotal juncture. With the impending match against Japan's under-20 team and the inclusion of Itoshire SAE, the stage was set for a confrontation that would test the mettle of all involved. Perhaps, Ego thought, it's not about the paths taken, but how one adapts at the crossroads. With that, he rose from his seat, ready to steer Bluelock toward the challenges ahead, ever curious to see who would rise to surpass their limits. A gentle rain had started to fall in Tokyo, fogging up the windows of a quiet corner cafe nestled beneath a canopy of fading cherry blossoms. Inside, soft jazz music played from the speakers. Naruto leaned over the table, hood drawn low over his blonde hair, a cup of hot chocolate steaming between his hands. Despite the cafe's calm, his heart hadn't quite caught up. The echo of stadium cheers and ego-fueled battles from the World 5 match still rang in his bones. A few days had passed since he'd stood toe-to-toe with football prodigies from across the globe. Somehow his performance had made headlines again, as leaked videos online was showing how the match played out. The soft jingle of the cafe door broke his thoughts. Inori stepped in, shaking off her umbrella. She wore a dark green coat over a casual dress, her long pink hair pulled into a loose braid. She spotted Naruto and smiled, small and private, just for him. Hey, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. Naruto smirked. You're late. I'm fashionable, she corrected. And you're early. I'm hiding. Aren't we all? Before Naruto could retort, the door opened again, and in walked SAE. He wore a black pea coat, headphones around his neck, and a tired look in his eyes. Like Naruto, he was laying low. He approached their table wordlessly, slid into the seat beside Naruto, and exhaled slowly. No paparazzi? Naruto asked, lifting his cup. I ghosted them, SAE replied flatly. And the cafe owner owes me a favor. Inori chuckled, pulling out her tablet. Then we've got time. Sae arched an eyebrow. For what? Inori flipped open the tablet with practiced ease. I've been tracking the top rankings ever since the second selection started, she said, her voice low but clear. Not everything is public, but I've got sources. She paused for dramatic effect. Unofficially. Naruto gave her a dry look. Of course, you do. Sae arched a brow. She says that like she didn't interview half the selection committee during a casual feature. Inori ignored them both. Her slender fingers tapped the screen a few times, then turned the device toward them. The screen displayed 6 profiles, each paired with stats, grainy match footage, and personality notes only someone truly plugged in could compile. Here's what you need to know, Naruto, she said, her tone shifting into something cooler, more professional. Bluelock's top players right now? They're monsters. And not just in the way ego wants. These 6 are the ones who've built their ego into a weapon. Yukimiya Kenyu, the one-on-one emperor, Inori tapped his image, a boy mid-dribble wearing sport glasses. Yukimiya's specialty is isolation play. One-on-one, he's nearly untouchable. His street dribbling style is all about disrupting an opponent's center of gravity. He shifts, feints, then bursts past with elite acceleration. The moment you bite, he's gone. Naruto leaned in, eyes narrowing. So, you can't pressure him directly? Exactly, Inori said. He turns pressure into propulsion. Next image was a lean, silver with a hint of green-haired player mid-sprint, vanishing between defenders. Otoya Ida, Shadow Striker, is chaos calculated, Inori continued. His entire game revolves around blind spots, places no one watches because of ball or body positioning. He's fast, slippery, and appears at the worst possible moment to finish a play. He thrives when someone else takes center stage because he uses their spotlight to disappear. Naruto frowned. So, he's a ghost. Sae's eyes flicked to the screen. No. He's a predator hiding in your blind spot. Inori gestured to a player with a hawk-like gaze, poised as if pulling invisible strings. Karasu, the assassin, is the brain of Bluelock. He doesn't talk much, but he sees everything. Reads tempo like a conductor. He's the type who kills a game before you know where the blade came from. Strategist? Naruto asked. Worse, Sae murmured. He's patient. The next profile showed Nagi, the lazy genius, catching a ridiculous cross on his first touch, killing it mid-air and volleying into the top corner without even looking winded. Inori's voice softened slightly. Nagi is chaos incarnate but refined. His first touch is beyond genius. It's instinctual. He creates opportunities no one else sees because he doesn't need to think. He reacts, and the ball obeys. Naruto couldn't help but grin. That guy's just ridiculous. He is, Inori agreed. But it's effortless for him. That makes him dangerous. Up next was Shido Ryusei, Holy Dragon. The clip showed a manic figure charging through defenders with brute power and animalistic motion. Eyes wild. Movements violent. Shido, Inori said, her voice losing a bit of its steady edge. Unfiltered instinct. He doesn't just want to score, he wants to break the game. Explosive striker, unpredictable, sometimes out of control. But give him rhythm, and he'll tear a team apart. Naruto's eyes sharpened. He's like a beast. No, Sae said. He's a weirdo. The screen dimmed to a profile Naruto had been fixated on since the list began. Same surname. Same silence from Sae. Itosha Rin, Inori said gently. They call him the egoist. Not because he's loud but because he believes he's the only one who matters. Cold. Tactical. Plays like he's dissecting a corpse. He doesn't just win, he obliterates the idea of anyone else winning. Naruto's eyes hadn't moved from the screen. Itosha. His gaze shifted to Sae. That's your brother? Sae didn't answer at first. Inori nodded in his place. Yes. Rin is SAE's younger brother. He's been climbing Bluelock since day one and he's number 1 now. No flair. No interviews. Just results. Naruto sat back slowly, letting the weight of it settle. You never mentioned him. Because it wasn't necessary, SAE muttered. Inori glanced between them but didn't press further. She knew better. Necessary or not, Naruto said, voice low but steady, if he's number 1 then he's coming for you. That's fine, SAE said taking a sip of his drink, looking out the window. The rain had softened into a quiet drizzle by the time they stepped out of the cafe. The sky above Tokyo was pale gray, casting everything in soft monochrome. Naruto tugged his hood over his hair as he turned to Inori, who simply let the light rain dot her coat and hair. You sure you're okay coming over? He asked, already knowing the answer. Inori looked sideways at him, brushing a strand of her pale pink hair behind her ear. I'm not nervous. Just curious. Naruto chuckled. That makes 2 of us. The ride through Tokyo was smooth, the late evening traffic less aggressive than usual. As they left the bustling commercial zone and turned into the quieter, greener streets of the Minato ward, the change was palpable. Even Inori, seasoned as she was in navigating high society for her work, felt the shift. Soon, the car passed through tall iron gates into the private road leading to the Uzumaki estate. Lush gardens unfurled like a living painting. Cherry blossom trees stood in perfect lines. A private koi pond reflected the soft glow of pathway lights. The mansion itself combined traditional shoji screens and tatami mat touches with towering glass walls, polished stone, and a cutting-edge architectural aesthetic that screamed both power and precision. Inori leaned slightly forward in her seat as the car slowed. So this is where the Emperor lives. Naruto chuckled. Feels more like a business headquarters with extra pillows. When the car stopped, Naruto stepped out and offered her a hand. She took it, her pink hair trailing behind her in the wind. Ready? I'm always ready, she replied. But her eyes lingered on the mansion's silhouette. Inside, the Uzumaki estate was warm and quiet, its marble floors shining like mirrors beneath the soft interior lighting. The space was immaculate modern elegance layered over traditional Japanese architecture. But despite its beauty, there was a stillness to it. A kind of museum silence. As Naruto shrugged off his hoodie, Inori whispered, "Feels like I should take off my shoes and bow to the ceiling." Naruto grinned. "You get used to it." The scent of something warm tea and maybe freshly baked mochi lingered faintly in the air as they moved through the hall. Naruto was about to call out when a familiar voice beat him to it. Kushina barefoot, dressed in cozy homewear, her long red hair slightly tousled, like she'd just rushed downstairs after hearing her son's voice. She blinked once. Then her face lit up. Well, she said, hands on her hips. Look what the rain dragged in. Hi, Mom, Naruto muttered, stepping in. We come bearing peace offerings. And manners. Kushina's eyes flicked to Inori, and her smile widened with mischievous delight. You must be the one with the pink hair and the spine. Inori, right? Inori bowed slightly, the very picture of calm and class. Yes, ma'am. It's lovely to meet you. Kushina strode forward not with restraint, but with the full energy of a woman who didn't believe in half measures and gave her a hug. A warm, quick squeeze full of approval and curiosity. Come in, she said, stepping back and waving them inside. You're prettier than the photos. Smart too, if you're still standing next to this one. I am right here, Naruto muttered. Kushina ignored him. Make yourselves at home. As they stepped into the polished main hallway, a staff member appeared almost on cue, bowing slightly. Shall I prepare the main sitting room, madam? Kushina nodded. Yes, and the green tea blend. With the seasonal sweets. The worker disappeared just as swiftly. I don't always go full host mode, Kushina said, glancing at Inori with a wink, but for you? I'll break out the fancy cups. They followed her through a wide corridor into the sitting room, where tradition met quiet luxury. Tatami elements blended with sleek decor, and soft piano played somewhere in the background. It was peaceful, but not stiff. Polished, but lived in. By the time they settled into the plush cushions around the low central table, the tea had already arrived. A matching set of celadone porcelain cups and a tray of delicate sweets were placed before them by the house staff. Moments later, Minato Uzumaki entered, still in work slacks and a charcoal sweater, sleeves rolled back neatly. Calm and composed, his presence filled the room like an anchor. "Inori-san," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome. We're honored to have you." Inori returned the gesture. "Thank you for having me, Mr. Uzumaki. It's a real honor." As Minato took his seat and tea was poured, Kushina settled beside Naruto with a relaxed smile. "So," she said, turning to Inori with mischief in her eyes. "How exactly did my son charm you? Accident? Pity?" Inori smiled. "Persistence." Naruto grinned. "And talent." Minato raised his cup. "Sounds about right." The rest of the evening unfolded smoothly, gently teasing questions, warm hospitality, and just enough insight into the family's rhythm to make Inori feel included rather than examined. When the topic naturally turned to tomorrow's U20 Japan team meeting, the tone shifted just slightly serious, proud. Inori lifted her cup with practiced grace. Naruto leaned into the cushions, unusually relaxed, though he kept stealing glances at her, quietly checking if she was okay. Kushina sipped her tea and leaned back, letting the silence linger just long enough to get dramatic. "So," she said, turning her amber eyes toward her son, "are you planning to tell us officially, or do we get to hear from the TV that you're leading the U20 Japan team now?" Minato glanced over the rim of his cup, calm but curious. "I saw the press statement from the Federation. Very understated, considering the implications." Inori raised an eyebrow, amused. Naruto exhaled, leaning forward slightly. It wasn't supposed to be a headline yet. They wanted to finalize the roster internally first. But ego being ego, leaked the match lineup to stir things up. Kushina clicked her tongue. "That man loves drama." "Yeah," Naruto said, smirking. He told the media, Japan's U20s will be led by a striker who already stood on the world stage. "Didn't say my name, but yeah. Everyone figured it out." Minato nodded slowly. "So it's official?" "Yeah," Naruto confirmed. "SAE and I are joining the core lineup. We're meeting the rest of the U20 squad tomorrow for the first full training camp. Ego wants the world watching when Bluelock faces us." Inori watched him quietly. There was no fanfare in the way he said it, no bravado. Just resolve. Minato's expression shifted, just slightly. "And you're ready?" Naruto's eyes flicked toward him, steady. "I've already played with SAE against Spain in the World Cup. I'm not walking in as a prodigy, I'm walking in as a problem. I know what I can do. And they're going to learn it, fast." Kushina grinned. "That's my boy." Inori smiled too. "You should have seen him at the World Cup. He wasn't just playing. He was directing the whole field. It's like he already knew what would happen next." Kushina tilted her head. "That Emperor's Eye?" Inori leaned forward slightly, excitement in her voice. "It's not just vision. It's prediction. He can see seconds into the future on the pitch. Where people will be, how they'll move. He doesn't just read the game, he rewrites it." Minato stared at Naruto for a moment, then gave a small, rare smile. "Then we'll be watching. Closely." Kushina stood and stretched. "And cheering. Loudly. Even if I have to throw a shoe at the ref." Naruto laughed. "You would." "I have," she shot back. As laughter filled the room, the weight of the upcoming battle felt momentarily lighter. It wasn't gone, just balanced. A gentle breeze stirred the branches of the cherry blossom trees, scattering petals across the grass like confetti from a forgotten festival. The koi pond rippled under the moonlight. Naruto sat on the edge of the stone path that curved around the pond, his shoes kicked off, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He leaned back on his hands, watching the reflections dance across the water. Beside him, Inori sat cross-legged, shoes tucked neatly beside hers, her pink hair catching silver highlights from the moon. "That went surprisingly well," Naruto said. Inori glanced at him, lips curling into a smile. "You make it sound like I was meeting a royal court." "Close enough," he chuckled. "My mom didn't threaten you, so that's a win. And Dad didn't grill you like a shareholder meeting, so that's a double win. She did hug me on sight. She does that." "I liked her," Inori said. "She's fierce. Real." Naruto looked over, the humor in his eyes softening into something gentler. "Yeah. She is." Inori stretched her arms above her head, letting out a small sigh. "Honestly? I was nervous. Not because of them. Because this is your world. The name. The house. The pressure. I wondered if I'd feel out of place." He turned fully now, one leg bent, elbow resting on his knee. "Did you?" She met his gaze and shook her head slowly. "No. Because you were there." Naruto didn't respond right away. He just watched her, the way the lantern light painted gold across her cheeks, the way the breeze moved strands of her hair. Then he smiled, not the attitude one he wore on the field, but the quiet, real one he only wore when the world wasn't watching. "Tomorrow's the real start," he said, his voice low. "I meet the U20s. First full camp. Then press, photos, interviews. The media's already building it up. The emperor returns home to defend Japan's pride. All that noise. You ready for it?" "I have to be," he said. "This match against Bluelock? It's more than football. It's a statement. Ego wants to prove his system works. And I want to show the world that genius doesn't need chaos to shine." Inori reached over, gently brushing his hand with her fingers. "You're not just showing them anything, Naruto. You're leading them. That's the difference." He let her fingers curl into his, anchoring him. "You'll be watching?" "Always," she said. "And reporting every goal like it's art." He grinned. "Make sure you get my good side." "I always do." They sat there in silence for a while, just the two of them, framed by the soft rustle of cherry blossoms and the steady hum of a city that never quite slept. The world would be waiting for him tomorrow. The fabric of Naruto's Japan national team tracksuit was crisp and new, still holding the faint scent of fresh packaging and purpose. The navy jacket bore the rising sun insignia over his heart, a mark of national pride. He stood outside the estate's gates, the morning breeze lifting golden strands of hair as he adjusted his collar. Beside him stood Sae, hands tucked into his pockets, sunglasses shielding his eyes, even though the sky was more overcast than sunny. The two said little as they waited. They didn't have to. They'd already played together on the world stage. Now, they were about to face a different kind of battlefield. A black van approached and slowed to a smooth stop. The door slid open. Naruto and Sae climbed in without a word, the silence charged not with tension but with focus. The air inside the meeting room was chilled, the AC humming lightly above them. The walls were glass, and the wide table at the center held nameplates, folders, bottled water. Everything was perfectly arranged. But as the U20 Japan players filed in, that sterile atmosphere began to buzz. Gen Fukaku, tall and stone-faced, stood by the far end of the room with his arms crossed. The defenders Kazuma Neo, Oliver Aiku, Teppei Neru, Miroku Darai took their seats in practiced formation. No posturing. No wasted movement. Just a veteran calm. The midfielders Haru Hayate and Itsuki Wakatsuki sat side by side, already murmuring about tactical adjustments. And then the forwards walked in. Teru Kitsunezato, lean and coiled, with eyes that scanned like sonar. Kento Cho, attitude and loud, chewing gum like it was currency. And Shudo Sendo broad-shouldered, confident, swaggering slightly ahead of the rest like he owned the floor. He barely looked at the defenders. Didn't glance at the coaching staff already waiting near the monitor. But the second he saw Naruto and Isagi enter, his eyes narrowed. He took a slow sip from his protein bottle, tossed it into a bin, and leaned against the wall with a smirk. Well, look who decided to show up. Our European tourists, Sendo said loudly enough for the room to pause. Naruto met his eyes as Isagi didn't even blink. I mean, I'd hate to interrupt your spa time in Spain and Italy, but this is the national team, boys. We play football here. Not fashion shows. A few nervous chuckles flickered in the room. Naruto said nothing. He walked across the space slowly, the silence stretching taut. Sendo's grin widened. What, nothing to say? Or did they forget to program your response in Italy? Naruto stopped directly in front of him, eyes steady. And then the shift. The Emperor's eye ignited. Sendo blinked. Something tilted. The air around Naruto didn't shift, it commanded. Suddenly, Sendo couldn't feel the floor quite right. His vision blurred at the edges. His balance faltered. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. It was light. Barely a touch, but Sendo's knees buckled as he hit the floor in a silent thud, eyes wide in disbelief. The room went silent. Lower your head, Naruto said, calm as a whisper, yet heavier than gravity. Sendo's jaw clenched, his mouth opening but no words came. Naruto stepped past him and took his seat at the table. Isagi followed, still silent, like this was routine. Sendo scrambled to stand, but the silence of the room had already swallowed his ego whole. Naruto didn't gloat. Didn't even smirk. He just looked straight ahead, eyes forward, as if this was the expected outcome. And the rest of the team? They understood one thing very clearly. The Emperor had arrived. The silence in the meeting room still hadn't recovered. Sendo sat stiffly in his chair now, posture perfect, jaw tight, but his eyes stayed fixed on the table. Across from him, Naruto was unreadable, the gleam of the Emperor's eye already fading into calm neutrality. Then the door opened. Two members of the Japan Football Union staff entered, head coach Hoichi Yasamori and assistant coach Nobuhiro, both clad in Winon's black and carrying slim leather portfolios. Kanzaki's face was weathered but firm, the kind of man used to authority. Nobuhiro, younger, gave off the energy of a tactical mind itching to prove itself. Good morning, Hoichi said as he stepped forward. I trust the introductions are out of the way. A few players shifted awkwardly. A couple murmured greetings. No one spoke too loudly. Hoichi placed his folder on the table and looked directly at Naruto and Isagi. Gentlemen. Thank you for making yourselves available ahead of full national training. Your performances on the world stage, particularly against Spain, have already begun reshaping global expectations for Japan. He turned toward the rest of the team. For those of you who haven't been fully briefed, these two are not guests. Not additions. Not cameos. He gestured openly toward the table. Naruto Uzumaki will lead the forward line. Starting striker. Tactical commander. The Emperor. Naruto's gaze remained forward, unmoving. Itoshiro Isagi will resume his role in the attacking midfield, with expanded creative liberty to link play. Both of them have faced and outplayed European elite. You will be training with them. Competing with them. Learning from them. Or, Hoichi's eyes swept the room. You won't be here much longer. Silence. Then Isagi stood. Not with drama, but with purpose. I'm not here to babysit, he said simply, scanning the room with sharp eyes. I'm not here to lead the next generation. And I'm definitely not here to prove anything. He paused. I'm here to see if Japanese football even has a future. A few players bristled. Kazuma Neo straightened in his seat. Fukaku didn't move. Isagi continued. Ego is putting Bluelock on the other side of the pitch to crush us. He thinks his system is better. That you, he gestured around the room, aren't good enough. He stepped back, hands slipping into his pockets. I for one, agree with that term. Sae said looking around the room, but try to prove me wrong. As he sat back down. The words landed like steel as Naruto stood up. He nodded once to Sae, then once to the rest of the room. Let's win. Hoichi gave the faintest smile. Meeting adjourned. Training starts at noon. Media at 3. Don't be late. The coaches left, as the room remained silent for a beat longer before the shuffling of chairs, the small murmurs of players recovering from a storm they hadn't expected. Uzumaki, Itoshir. Both turned at once. Oliver Aiku stood there, arms crossed, posture casual but unmistakably alert. His captain's armband was still snug on his bicep, like it was part of him, not just gear. He looked between them for a second, then walked over. I don't do speeches, Aiku said. And I don't care about drama. But I've seen tape. Real goobers. World Cup. You two walk like you've already won. Sae gave a lazy shrug. Maybe we have. Aiku glanced at him, unimpressed, then looked at Naruto. You're not what I expected. Naruto raised a brow. That a compliment? It's something, Aiku said, tone even. A lot of hype surrounds guys like you. Most of it's noise. He paused, studying Naruto not as a rival, but like someone testing weight with his hands. But I've played center back against every type of striker in this country. And there's something different in your eyes. Naruto gave a small nod. I see the field. I figured, Aiku said, lips twitching faintly. When Sendo dropped without a word? Thought maybe I blinked too long. Naruto didn't respond right away. Respect's earned. Not barked. Aiku gave the barest smirk. Glad we agree. He stepped aside, nodding toward the corridor. Media's waiting. Try not to say anything that'll break the internet. Sae passed without a word, as Naruto paused and looked back. Aiku, he said, when this match comes. The captain met his gaze. Make sure they look at you last. Because I'll be the one they remember first. Aiku didn't flinch. Just nodded once. We'll see. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author SpellRGN on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.